Events begin to unfold in the grand hall of the palace, where everything shines with gold and wealth. Ophelia sat haughtily on the throne and heard a voice speak rather rudely to her. A young man accompanied by knights appeared before her, who informed her that now everything has changed. He threatened that the time has come to answer for his actions and sins. Ophelia remained quite calm and unemotional, her whole appearance seeming to show that she did not care. The black-haired youth continued and said that he knew she was the one who poisoned Sitara and tried to harm Mr. Yuta. He also added that she wanted to hide the Emperor's will. Ophelia Dane Ridani was then informed that she would be severely punished according to the laws of the Empire. She was asked if she wanted to say her last words. The girl cunningly said that she would destroy this world. Ophelia clarified that she really wants this world, which is so cruel to her to disappear. At that moment, cries were heard to shoot her. After some time, Ophelia noticed that she was lying on the floor, and it turned out that she was alive. She felt quite weak, because she still felt the pain from Haven's arrows that passed through her. Then a maid came into the room and brought tea, because Her Highness had a bad cough. But suddenly the tea tray flew to the floor. The maid was embarrassed when she saw the princess in such a state on the floor. She said that she will leave now. The young girl cried and screamed that she was back and alive again. She remembered with pain that she had already died 4 times and wondered how many more times she would be reincarnated. Now she was reborn. According to the plot of the fantasy novel The Return of the Crown Prince, she was now Ophelia. The book talked about Ophelia being a thief. She dragged Yuta to the tower and killed his mother. At the same time, the main character Yut was able to cope with all the difficulties. But this novel ended. According to the plot, he defeated his half-sister Ophelia and became emperor. According to the book, a terrible punishment awaited the thief Ophelia. But the girl decided that she would rewrite the ending of this novel. For a long time, she wanted to change the fate of the bad Ophelia, who she had to become after another rebirth. In the past, she was a good sister to Yut's half-brother, who was imprisoned in the tower. But soon she even renounced her throne for the rest of her life. The girl was happily married to Kristen Kalman Erhard. He was the next master of the magic tower, and also a handsome man who turned out to be redundant in this novel of the book. But at the same time, she did not expect at all that the man, whom she considered a weak and unimportant active person of the novel, was capable of such a thing. One day, Kristen turned to his wife and said that she was about to become an empress and that he had already prepared everything. Ophelia was saddened by the offer she heard, because she left the throne in favor of Utah, and he no longer has anything to do with her. She really did not understand why this was happening to her, because she had lived a decent life. The princess once again remembered that moment, and that she, Ophelia, is a sinner. People shouted that her head should be cut off. Then she hoped that now her life would definitely end, and there would be no next reincarnation. But something else happened. She scrolled through all those moments from her previous life and did not believe that she was really alive now. She could not believe that she was dying such a terrible death when her head was chopped off. The girl recognized the look she had 10 years ago. Did she go back in time again? The princess thought with regret that she had so dreamed of creating a happy ending to the novel. The girl guessed that she simply did not expect that then her husband, whom she did not consider an influential character in the plot, would set her up like that. Behind the door came the worried voice of the maid again, who asked if Her Highness had a cough. Disregarding the worker, the princess continued to think why she came back to life again, and would she again face a terrible death? The maid once again reminded that she had brought tea to the young landlady. The princess decided that she should act according to the plot of the novel. Only this will be able to stop all her subsequent reincarnations. The young lady sternly asked if she really had to drink this and turned the tea tray over. The servant frightenedly announced that she would leave the room. The girl understood that every time she was reborn, she chose a cruel life. Therefore, she did not pay attention to the fact that she became even angrier this time. The young lady regretfully calculated that this was her 5th life after reincarnation. But basically, nothing changed. In each new life, Yut continued to manipulate her body in the most brutal way so she wouldn't. The princess decided that if the fate of her permanent reincarnation is unchanged, then this time she wants to die painlessly. She didn't want arrows piercing her body again and again. The princess cried again and wished that she, the thief, had a chance to die peacefully. The maids who were present at her dinner were too upset and frightened by such a reaction of the landlady. Finally, the princess decided that it was necessary to stop rummaging because she could not deviate from the plot. She made up her mind that before she met her death again, she would give the throne to Yutu. This, in her opinion, will give her an easy death. That's all she wanted. On that beautiful, sunny morning, the young girl reasoned in her mind that she would die peacefully and that she would not be in pain, so she had nothing to worry about. She wanted it to be a peaceful death like in a dream, but she didn't know how. Bad thoughts and memories began to swirl in her head again. The voice she heard threatened that he would do everything in his power to make her die in agony. The entire palace district heard a cry that this would never happen. The girl mentally assumed that she must have been reincarnated again, but she would like to return to the times when Sitara was alive. Sitara was a maid who came from a small village in the north. She was also the mother of Yuta, the man who was chosen as emperor. Before finishing the meal, the girl continued to mention that she was reborn at the exact time when Ophelia killed Sitara. She wishes she could go back in time to stop it. She also regretfully thought that if Sitara had been alive, Yut would not have hated her so much. The maids who were present during the emotional thoughts of the princess, frightened, asked her if she did not like the food and asked her not to punish them. The girl was thinking, why are they so afraid of her because she just took a breath? She was also concerned that a peaceful death was too much to ask for. She understood that she was now living the life of a thief, but she still had to find a way to die peacefully and quietly. That morning someone asked Her Highness in the castle where she was going. Was it Amy's maid, stuttering, trying to find out from the princess where she was going? The princess, in turn, asked her how long that child has been sitting there completely closed. Amy pondered as she tried to clarify whether it was about His Highness Yuta. She replied that today is exactly 1 year since he has not seen the white world. The princess remembered that she had really kept him there for a whole year. Then a new idea came into her head, how to act further. She figured out how to get a peaceful death in this novel. The princess decided that it was necessary to play the role of the victim in front of Yut, and he would give her a peaceful death. According to her new idea of the plot, Yut should not die because he is the main character. She understood that currently Yut is sitting in a terrible prison, but even under such conditions, he has never been sick there. In other words, she meant that suffering is better than inevitable death. The princess seemed to be going mad, continuing to look for a plan and to come up with a plot that would allow her to die peacefully. Her head was filled with thoughts that she should stop thinking about this already, and the question of whether she would succeed in this plan. The maids whispered behind her back that the princess was behaving quite strangely and wondered if there would be a bloody rain in the palace. And the princess at that time understood everything and regretted that she now had to live the life of a thief. A young man, Mr. Yut, continued to sit in prison. The prisoner's full name was Jutdine Redanius, and he was the emperor's only son and Ophelia's half-brother. He assured the young worker Shauna not to worry as he was just looking out the window. He dreamed that it would be good if he finally got out of here and could walk with her on such a sunny day. Shauna mentally noted that he was a very sweet child. To beg the young man to always remember who brought him here and not to forget his mother's death. Shauna added that this is all the work of the vile Ophelia. Jut was afraid that they might be overheard, because they could not say such things about the princess. It was at this time that Princess Ophelia and her maids were already standing at the door. She assumed that she must have come at the wrong time. She ordered the workers to stay here nearby. They wanted to deny her, but did not dare. In the prison that Mr. Jut should be patient, and that the emperor would soon save him. The boy asked Shauna if it was about that old man, but soon something caught their attention. Ophelia entered the room and said that it would be difficult for the emperor to do this, because he is already quite old. The young man looked at her in surprise, and she greeted him. Shauna covered Yut with herself and began to accuse Ophelia of coming here, because she promised not to touch him. The princess asked herself, is she not afraid of her and wants her to kill her? Then she giggled and regretted saying that, because she was just used to being the thief Ophelia. Frightened, Yut began to beg Shauna to ask the princess for forgiveness. He was very afraid of losing her. Ophelia mentally remembered that her stepbrother had also truly loved her in her first life. She remembered how he admired her, but at the same time, memories of how she, a sinner, was beheaded came to mind. So she decided that all this love might not be real. The princess said that these were all trifles and asked Yut to forget about it. She asked the boy if he wanted to get out of here. The maids eavesdropped on the conversation under the door and wondered what the princess said. Ophelia asked if he wanted to get out of here. Yut raised his head in fright and dared to address Her Highness. The boy asked her about the purpose of her visit. Does she want to kill him? Ophelia understood that she had to look quite angry for her role. But with a kind look, I asked him why he thinks so. Ute explained that he knew she wouldn't have come here and agreed to let him go if she didn't have plans for him. He added regretfully that he thought that even if he was released from here, she would send him to some terrible place that might be worse than death. The girl saw how he was afraid of her and mentally noted his true lust for life. Suddenly, Shauna's defense attorney screamed that Mr. Ute was right and they couldn't trust her. Ophelia rejoiced at such a reaction of the little captive. She asked the boy if he was waiting for the Emperor to save him. The girl added that they simply do not know the latest news, and the fact is that the Emperor has health problems, so she assumed that he is not capable of anything now. She mockingly said that he was almost dying and would soon be reunited with Sitara, and she is the only one who can free her half-brother. Ute was unpleasantly shocked by what he heard and asked again. One of the maids admitted that she thought it rather strange that Princess Ophelia had asked Ute about his desire to get out of here. She didn't understand why she needed to scare Mr. Ute even more and wondered what she was up to. At the same time, Ophelia began to intimidate the young man even more. But she clarified in a rather sweet tone that he should think carefully about who is capable of saving and freeing him. The boy thought for a moment, and Ophelia at that moment saw in front of her the face of Yuta, on which she was so counting, full of strength and determination. After all, in past lives, she'd already seen such a look from her stepbrother, which was filled with hatred and the desire to kill her. She remembered her past lives and how terribly her first life had been destroyed. But the culprit was not only her husband Kirsten, but also how bad she was herself. The princess remembered the episode when the woman sat before her on her lap while she ascended the throne. It was Sitara, and Ophelia informed her that the Emperor had no feelings for her. Sitara begged the princess to have mercy on her. Her Highness then replied that she would take everything under her control and destroy anyone who stood in her way. The woman begged for mercy and said that she would give everything and live a quiet life somewhere far away if only she would not touch little Ute. At that moment, Ophelia did put that signature. She told Sitara that she should be responsible for her words. A voice told Her Highness that they had a big problem. The boy Ute was told that Mrs. Sitara had been poisoned. Ophelia reacted with a steadfast expression and said that this was rather sad news. It was then that the princess told her half-brother Ute that they should become friends. It was still in her first life. Now in the prisoner's room, Her Highness reminded the young man of this, because then he must have thought that she was joking. She said it quite loudly and emotionally, but she couldn't help but hear the whispering of the maids outside the door. Ophelia admitted that she did not expect Jute to believe her, even if she promised to protect him. She said that in any case the choice would be his. After all, either he will believe her and get out of here, or he will continue to be afraid and stay here. After that, she left the room and told Amy to follow her. Amy felt sorry for Mrs. Yuta in her mind. She believed that it would be safely hidden forever. Ophelia at that time was waiting for the right reaction from the boy. Soon as she was leaving, she felt that someone was holding her. It was Ute who told Her Highness that he wanted to get out of there. He stated quite confidently that he didn't really know the princess's wishes, but he no longer wanted to be a prisoner of the tower. Ophelia decided for herself that this little guy is actually the main character. He conquered all his fears. Shauna then shouted at him not to make a mistake, because it is dangerous, but Ute replied that his stay here could be more dangerous. He confidently added that he was afraid that it could be dangerous. He decided to leave here. Shauna continued to persuade him not to go, but they were both crying at this point. The princess, looking at this young man's reaction, decided that he was actually very intelligent and prudent. But she said out loud that Ute looked small and unkempt, like a kitten. The young man, who did not understand anything, clarified what she meant. Ophelia understood that they did not trust each other, but such a relationship completely satisfied her. Shauna watched them go. She heard Her Highness scornfully order Amy to wash the dirty child. Meanwhile, one respectable gentleman got dressed for a business. The butler asked him, "Are you going to leave?" But not getting an answer, he added that he should be careful. The maids thoroughly washed Mr. Ute in the bathroom. They suggested adding lavender water and water infused with special herbs and lemon. Next, he received instructions on how to use perfume correctly. There were 42 vials in total. Also, the maids showed him clothes for every day, which he was very surprised by. At that time, Shauna entered the room and informed that she had brought him clothes. When she saw his new outfit, she started yelling for them to stop because he was feeling uncomfortable. Shauna tried to address her Mr. Ute, but was very nervous. After all the procedures, The guy looked flawless. He didn't want his sister to say again that he smelled and was dirty. The maids asked him to follow them. He was delighted with what he saw and could not believe that such beautiful places existed. But at the same time, he was a little scared and decided to prepare for death when he met Her Highness. Ute told Shauna to pay attention to such a beautiful greenhouse, and she kept trying to get the young man to admit that Princess Ophelia is dangerous and should not be trusted. Ophelia was sitting in the living room and called Ute to go have breakfast. An unpleasant incident happened during breakfast. Hot tea was spilled. The maid apologized to Her Highness for spilling tea on her dress. The princess calmly replied that everything is fine. Ute didn't dare to go into the living room yet. He understood that Shauna was right, but now he needed time to calm down. He was worried about the fact that his half-sister might turn to the side of evil again. Ophelia thought to herself that she needed a rest today because she had already done a lot. She let stubborn Ute out of the tower. At breakfast, they were both silent and embarrassed. Ophelia had mixed thoughts, for example. She wondered to herself that she was sitting at the table with Ute. She was afraid of catching some infection from him. In her voice, the girl politely informed Ute that from now on they would always have breakfast together. She added that he has a lot to learn as a prince. The boy asked in surprise. The maids could not believe their ears that Ophelia called him a prince. It did not fit into their heads. Her Highness said that the young man will have to study such sciences as history, economics, humanitarian sciences, understand the rules of etiquette. She also understood that she would have to teach him imperial science, but that was still a long way off. Ophelia also warned him that he needed to learn swordsmanship. Jut, after receiving so many instructions, decided that she was trying to kill him in this way. The princess at that moment admired him and compared him to a young aristocrat. Bad thoughts did not leave the boy, and he wondered what she was really up to. Embarrassed Ute at the table admitted that he still does not know how to use cutlery correctly because they rattle against each other. Ophelia reassured him that he had a right not to know how to do it because he hadn't learned it. The boy was mentally angry with the princess because it was all because of her. Her Highness informed him that he would live in the Rose Palace. Sitara lived there. She added that from now on he would have new maids and asked how much he needed. Ute replied that he only needed Shauna, to which the girl assumed that it would probably be difficult for her to practice alone with such a palace. The conversation was interrupted by a maid who wanted to tell Her Highness something. She reported that Lord Erhard had arrived. The young man continued to practice with the cutlery, but was nervous that they still rattled against each other. Ophelia was very upset that Erhard had come and ordered the maid to escort him out. Out of surprise, the princess dropped her fork and knife on the floor. Ute was surprised at this reaction and wondered what happened. It was about Kirsten Kallman Erhard. Ophelia was tense because she did not expect the visit of the one who was her husband in the first life. She remembered that when they first met, then she felt special in his eyes. But then he cheated on her, so now she has to avoid him. The young man offered Her Highness to use his devices. He specified that he had not yet had time to use them. Ophelia had been brought back to Earth. It turns out that she got so nervous that she dropped the utensils from her hands. Jut was startled when he saw the princess's reaction and regretted that he had focused on it at all. He said he could eat with his hands, but he immediately corrected himself, clarifying that it was indecent. The princess sat alone and thought she had lost her mind as soon as she heard Kirsten's name. The boy dared to ask Her Highness, "Who is Lord Erhard, whom the maid mentioned?" Kirsten was waiting in the living room, to whom the maid informed that Mrs. Ophelia was ill and unable to receive guests now. He asked the worker about it. Lord initially accepted this version, but then doubted it because maybe Her Highness holds a grudge against him. Ute apologized to the princess for asking her for a lord, but admitted that he was worried about how she reacted, and now she looks pale. He once again asked why she was so surprised by his visit. Was he really a bad person? He assumed in his mind that he must have offended her. Ophelia, with tears in her eyes, replied that Kirsten Kallman Erhard is not a bad person, even a great one. He is a wizard. The guy was surprised and asked again. The princess said that from now on, when the owner of the magic tower disappeared, Lord Erhard should become his successor. She pondered in her mind, how could such a great person then betray her so cruelly? The girl continued and said that such people are not interested in wealth. They have many other free privileges. She added that their greatness lies in their infinite magical power. Ute listened attentively to the princess's story about how when magic and sorcery disappear, people with great power appear. These people know no boundaries, and that's exactly what Lord Kirsten is Erhard. Ophelia told herself to stay calm and do nothing for now. She asked Yuta for some distraction if he still wanted to eat. The boy replied that he had already had enough. The girl was worried about the fact that Ute might remember Kirsten's visit and, under certain conditions, might decide that she and him are in the same marriage. She understood that it was dangerous, and therefore she could not allow Ute to be so interested in Kirsten's visit to her. But the boy was not going to give up and asked why such a majestic magician came to Her Highness. He hastened to clarify that he didn't say that because he didn't think she was good enough for such a man. The boy admitted that he had read about magicians only in books on the history of the Empire. Ophelia asked about books on the history of the Empire. The boy realized that he had said too much. After all, the fact that he read books at all was a secret for Her Highness. The girl thought, because she never allowed Yuta to read books, especially on the history of the Empire. She assumed that Shauna must have brought them to him. Jut realized that he could have big problems, because he violated the princess's orders. He wondered what he should do now and worried that Shauna might die because of him. Ophelia was simply silent and did not show any emotions. Afterwards, she said that she needed to visit the Emperor in the hospital and suggested that Yuta take a tour of the palace at that time. The boy tried to catch up with his sister and say that he regrets what happened to the Emperor. The princess thought that he must be sorry because he once listened to her. Ute was nervous because he understood that she would not leave it so easily, but Ophelia surprisingly only smiled sweetly at the young man. The guy did not understand what was happening because he remembers her as a completely different person, more cruel. He wondered why she had left it so easily. Even the maids all breathed a sigh of relief. Jut thought that then the end had come for him. He apologized to Shauna and promised to be more careful from now on. In the meantime, Ophelia made sure again that she was still alive. She admitted that this 10-year-old made her so nervous that she thought she might die from it. She hoped that Ute would forget about Kirsten's visit and was glad that she managed to distract him for a moment. Suddenly, she was distracted from her thoughts by a maid who wanted to convey something to her. It was a toy teddy bear. Ophelia was afraid that the toy might have a spell on it and it would grow over time. She nervously asked who it was from. The maid replied that it was a gift from Lord Kirsten Kalman Erhard due to the fact that the young lady fell ill. She added that he had promised to visit again, as he really wanted to see Her Highness. Emma asked about further instructions for his arrival. Ophelia began to shout that they should tell him that she was no longer here, that she did not want to see him. The maid asked what to do with Mr. Lord Erhard's gift then. The princess replied that they should take it back, but the maid protested that it violated the rules of etiquette. The girl wondered what was wrong here and why it violates etiquette. She believed that now are such bad times. Ophelia thought that Kirsten's behavior was only making things worse. She was also worried that she always had to choose a new outfit for a meeting with the Emperor. Therefore, she decided that when she becomes Empress, she will ban these rules of luxury and extravagance. His Highness was informed that Princess Ophelia came to visit him. The girl always hated the time she had to spend with the Emperor. He lived in the inner part of the Palace of the Sun. Therefore, this time too, she decided that she would quickly finish with the papers and leave. But when she entered the living room, she saw the Emperor lying on the sofa. The girl decided that he was sleeping. Therefore, she came up with the idea of simply leaving the papers on the table, which was even beneficial to her. But immediately she heard the voice of His Highness, who asked why she had come. The princess was upset that she had never been able to leave quietly and inconspicuously. She greeted and said that this was Ophelia. The Emperor, who was her and Yuta's father, returned to her. Keen's Dine Raidania. He said she was too cruel. The girl did not understand where she misbehaved again. The Emperor coughed and asked her to close the door. Ophelia decided that she wanted to understand the history of Utah. The old man said he was sick, but he knew who made all the fuss. He started shouting that he wanted to make him Emperor. The Emperor added that it should not have been her. The girl thought she knew it. She also knows that he will die soon after the new year and has left a will in which he passes the throne to Utah. The father asked his daughter why she is so callous and cruel. Here Ophelia couldn't stand it and answered that she is the king's child, so she probably looks like her father. The king was angry at such words and called the girl a naughty creature. The girl was afraid that, as always, he would pour water on her head. This already happened in a past life when many arrows flew into her, or in that life when she died of an illness or was cremated. The Emperor insulted her even when she was with Ute and Kirsten. She expected such actions from the king even today because then she could safely leave here. A moment later, a glass of water flew towards her. He flew past her, only slightly catching her because she had time to dodge. The Emperor coughed again and wondered if she really thought he was weak. He reported that she killed her only brother. Ophelia tried to argue with him and said that he always blames only her. She added that if his son was from a noble woman and not from Sitara's maid, he would not have abandoned him first. The girl added that the king must be stable. She wished him a lot of strength to act as he had planned before. Ophelia told him not to worry about Yuta and informed him that she would be the one to die at his hands. The old man said that she must have gone out of her mind. The princess reported that she managed all his affairs skillfully, but everyone was waiting for him to get better. The emperor thought it was ridiculous that a daughter could die from little Yuta. She admitted that Yut would become emperor when he turned 20 years old. Only then will he become strong and be able to control the aristocrats. The emperor shouted at his daughter and said that she could not just leave like that. His maid informed Ophelia that His Highness had a strong cough. She gave the order to watch over him. Soon the princess returned and asked the maid if she was his maid. She guessed that her father had lost his voice and she couldn't hear him well, but she heard well that he said that this time she would kill her brother. Ophelia told the servant that she must find people to take care of His Highness. She even began to threaten that if the workers did not do so, they would be punished for it. But in her heart, she understood that she would never be able to truly love her father. Such an interesting conversation was overheard by the young man. The events are transferred to the palace of Princess Ophelia. She regretfully reported that no one wanted to be his teacher. She reassured Yut that it wasn't his fault and that he shouldn't worry about it. The girl considered them all cowardly aristocrats. They were afraid to deal with her. Ophelia understood that they had no idea that if they gave a little knowledge to Yut, he would become the master and emperor of the country. The sister told Yut that they had no other choice, so she would start teaching him herself. He countered that she probably had a lot to do anyway. Princess Ophelia told him not to say that because he is a prince. But she understood that in these stories, she really needed the emperor to be carefully looked after. Ophelia assured her younger brother that she would teach him. At the same time, the girl understood that such a quality of character did not suit the real Ophelia at all. The princess finally saw that a distance had appeared between them. She worried in her mind that she had no choice but to teach him herself. But she said that if he has no questions, he can go to his room. The girl didn't want to see that face and wondered how terrible their relationship would become now. Yut went to his room with Shauna, but he was somewhat worried. He remembered Ophelia's conversation with the emperor's maid in the Palace of the Sun, but he could not then hear what it was about. He decided to go back to Ophelia's room and said he had a question for her. Ophelia was amazed that Yut was the first to talk to her. She asked what he wanted. In her mind, she was worried about his activity and wondered what he wanted to know. The boy asked why she didn't kill him as soon as they left the walls of the tower. The princess was not confused and replied that, as she had said before, she could use it. Yut did not understand anything. Ophelia explained that there was one thing he had to do when he grew up. She added that this was the only answer to his question. Yut calmly stood in place and just kept silent. Left alone, the girl began to get nervous. She was worried that he started coming so often. She will need to think carefully about everything for the future in order to follow the plan, she decided. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It was Amy who suggested Her Highness take a bath. Ophelia refused but told the servant that she could come in. The girl noticed that something had changed. She wondered why her clothes were changed, and even the mattress became softer. Amy brought Her Highness a flower, but the princess was worried about why the maid was smiling like that. The worker said that this flower can only be found far away in the mountains in the north. She admitted that she was afraid that the flower would wither, so she brought it here. Ophelia remembered that she had heard of the flower before. It was a plant of the northern region that shines brightly at night. The girl also mentioned that only aristocrats can get this flower. The mining area in the north was an area inhabited by no one but dangerous monsters. Her Highness understood that it was simply impossible to deliver a flower from there, so she asked who could do it. Amy replied that Lord Kirsten had brought the plant Kalman Erhard. Ophelia was puzzled by this and stated that Kirsten must have used magic to do this. Amy admitted that her new outfit, mattress, and flower were all sent here by Lord Erhard. Her Highness remembered another gift from him, a teddy bear. She wondered why there were so many gifts. Now she understood why Amy was smiling like that. The maid said that Lord Erhard said he would visit her soon. Ophelia began to think that all this meant that she would soon die. She couldn't let Kirsten bother her so often, but it was still too early to do anything about him. The girl came up with a plan, but she turned to Amy. She asked the maid if she had the clothes of a commoner, to which she was very surprised. The worker asked what she wanted to do with these clothes. From that moment, a new life and adventures in the underworld began with Amy, the princess's maid. The princess was known to everyone as a fraud, so death always followed her. But tonight she was walking around town like a normal person. At the same time, the lady must be satisfied that Lord Erhard is courting her. That night, the princess again went for a walk in the night city. Amy was worried that someone might find out who they really were. She also wondered how they ended up in the suburbs, and how did Her Highness know about this place? The maid got nervous again when she saw how the princess stumbled. She was worried that her entire family might be punished if Her Highness injured her leg. She also noticed that Ophelia's coat was torn. Therefore, she decided that now her family will definitely suffer from pain. Amy cried and begged Her Highness to come back. The frightened maid thought that something terrible would happen if the princess met, for example, some drunken man. But on the way they met a bloodied young man who cursed the princess. Ophelia at that moment regretted why everything she thought about began to come true. Amy continued to catch up with the princess and beg her not to go far alone. Ophelia asked if someone was watching them. Her Highness felt that someone was following them. At the same time, the maid tearfully asked her to return back to the palace. Ophelia could barely walk because the road was full of potholes. Amy felt sorry for her family. The princess reflected that no matter how much she spent on restoring these poor places, she would hardly be able to get anything out of it. Amy screamed hysterically for Her Highness to be careful. The girl made a remark to the maid to stop wailing like that because it could harm them. Moving on, Ophelia noticed a small alley, on the walls of which were hung many advertisements. She realized that here was what she was looking for. But soon Her Highness exclaimed that it was here. The princess crashed into the young man who was covered in drops of blood. She yelped and thought it was pretty harsh. Without raising her head, the girl thought that she heard the smell of fish. The young man asked the girl what happened. Ophelia finally realized that the guy in front of her was covered in blood, and she was upset, because this was not part of her plans. The next moment the girl stumbled, and her foot hit a pothole. In a panic, Ophelia realized that now she would not be able to hold on and would fall, but the road was full of nails. In a few seconds, she began to think that if she were to fly forward, she would have to hug the boy. She also understood that if she were to fall backwards, she could be seriously injured. The young man grabbed her by the collar of her dress and tried to keep her on her feet. The girl was silent. Then the princess coughed, but Amy rushed to her, asking if everything was okay with her. The stranger noted that they were too noisy. The maid thanked for the help, asked who this man was and how he dared to behave like that with her. Ophelia tried to calm her assistant down. The boy replied to Amy that the lady brought her here on purpose because she had a motive. He also drew her attention to the coachman in the distance and told her that the same thing would soon happen to her. Amy hysterically began to ask the stranger what he meant. The young man admitted that slave traders gather in this alley and make deals. He added that all these announcements on the walls are information about the sale of slaves. He sarcastically pitied the servant girl and said that her mistress must have already added her to the slave sale list. But Amy did not believe it right away, but began to accuse the young man of false information. Ophelia was frightened because she thought that now Amy would start, as usual, begging her for mercy and thereby make an unnecessary noise. The princess began to comfort the sobbing Amy and promised that she would not hold her responsible for this. The young man mentally noted that it was the first time he had seen such an aristocrat who felt sorry for her maid. He wondered what they were doing in this area. He decided that he had scared them enough that they would soon leave, and he turned to go back himself when he heard his name being called. Ophelia asked him to stay with Amy for a couple of minutes. The young man turned around in surprise and asked what they wanted from him. Ophelia replied that she really knew this place very well, as he managed to notice it. But now she needs to find something, and taking a maid with her is dangerous. The princess confidently added that she knew how he would come back for her anyway, because he would be worried about her safety. The stranger did not like what he heard. He shouted that he didn't care and that they should go home. Then the young man went to the mysterious door and knocked on it. A boy opened the door for him, who happily said that he knew he would come by today. Then the boy made a remark to the young man and told him to stop. Frightened, Amy was glad the bastard was gone and told the lady they had to get out of here. But Ophelia did not care and continued on her way forward. The maid once again reminded that it is dangerous and that slave traders gather here. The girl replied that she had important business to attend to. They found themselves in front of a bar with a glowing yellow sign. It was the meeting place of the Assassin's Guild. Ophelia admitted that she had come here to buy that man. His name was Nigh. He was the most famous assassin who, because of poverty, decided to become a slave of the guild. It was too precious, even very precious and expensive, and Nigh was an important character in the plot of the novel and was supposed to play an important role in Ophelia's future. Amy knocked on the door and announced that she had brought the lady tea and treats. The princess replied that she would skip the tea ceremony today. Nigh was sitting in front of her, whom she asked, "Where did these wounds come from?" But he replied that all this is already in the past. He admitted that the most important thing now is that she is his lady. Ophelia liked this answer and marked it. Nigh wondered how he knew this smell. The princess pointed out that she was now his mistress, so he had to tell her where his injuries came from and why he was sold so easily. Ophelia knew that Nigh had excellent eyesight and an icy voice. Ever since he became an assassin, he has become quite violent. But whatever he is, he still loves his younger brother more than anything in the world. The princess continued to ask Nigh why his body was covered with bruises. She did not understand how a slave could be sold to her in such a form. According to the new plan that Ophelia came up with, she has to restore justice because someone abused her slave so cruelly. Nigh finally admitted that he had been punished by his past master, Guild Jin, when he learned that he would now be sold to the aristocrats. Ophelia was surprised that he was already aware of her aristocratic affiliation. Nigh replied that it no longer mattered to him. He assured her that from now on she was considered his mistress. The princess was surprised at what was said and noted to herself that he was too naive, but decided to go to the main one. She wondered how long he was going to stay on his knees and why he couldn't finally free himself. The very next moment Nigh was almost free. The young lady removed the blindfold from his eyes and said that he was a good boy. She clarified that according to tradition, it is the mistress who should remove her from her slave. When the young man saw the face of the princess, he immediately remembered that scene in the night alley when she asked him to stay with her maid for a couple of minutes. Hysterically, he announced that he recognized her. The girl said that her name is Ophelia Dine Raidani. She assumed that he must have already heard her name because she is the crown princess of this empire. Nigh was very surprised and understood what it means to be in the palace if there is a princess in front of him. Ophelia said that she wanted him to become her bodyguard, a hired worker. Ute overheard this conversation. He was worried that the princess needed a mercenary, so she wanted to kill someone, maybe? Nigh screamed that he could not carry out her order and kill the prince. But the girl denied that she did not say such a thing. Quite unexpectedly, she said that she wanted him to kill her. She added that at the right time he should kill her in the most painless way possible. The slave was surprised by such an order and could not understand anything. The guy said he didn't understand what she meant. Ophelia was mentally glad that she took into account his determination and categoricalness. She clarified that she had already prepared a thorough plan. The plan was that for those around them, they would seem to work closely together, and then stage her death as if it had been a suicide. However, she added that she had prepared a safe place where he could live peacefully afterwards. Then the princess threw jewels at his feet as proof. The lady said that it would all be his and decided that now everything would go as planned, because he would not refuse such an offer for anything. She thought that with this wealth, he would be able to live happily with his brother all his life, and even decided that she could tell him how to use these jewels properly. The princess was also going to explain to him what would happen to his slave contract, but unexpectedly heard a refusal. Nigh said that even being enslaved by her, he could not carry out such an order. According to the plot of the novel, Nigh was Yuta's right-hand man, but he hated Ophelia more than anyone else, and it was he who betrayed her. Knowing this, the princess now fears him more than anything else, but it does not occur to her that he refuses to kill her. Nigh admitted that he would have preferred her to kill him as his mistress. But Ophelia still considered him a scoundrel who participated in human trafficking with the guild and hid it from her younger brother. The girl continued to bargain with him and even offered a palace. The slave replied that it would be better if she just killed him. Nigh repeated once more that Her Highness should kill him. He said that if she threw jewels at him in an attempt to kill him, he would remain unmoved and grant her wish. Ophelia wondered why he was so difficult to deal with, and did he think she would let him go? Still, she decided that it was too early to include his younger brother, whom he loves more than anyone in the world. Suddenly her thoughts were interrupted by someone, and she thought, who decided to disturb her? Her Highness shouted her warning that she would miss tea. Ute was outside the door. apologizing and saying that she herself had told him that he could come any time he had any questions for her. Ophelia panicked and decided that she urgently needed to get Now on her side before he met Ute. But the slave was too stubborn and insisted on his way, and she also thought that if they were seen together in such a situation, they would be misunderstood. Ophelia once again emphasized that she hoped he would accept her favorable offer. Ta now again insisted that she kill him. The girl felt terrible irritation from him. Then Her Highness opened the door and asked Yuta what he needed. He replied that he wanted to tell his sister something, but the princess said that everything will be done later, and instead offered the surprised young man to go with her to the festival in the capital. Ute asked if this festival is happening just now. The sister replied that it would be very interesting. Now sat in silence at that time and had many questions in his mind. According to the original plot, a festival was held in the capital, at which Nigh was also supposed to be present. He was a flower seller and a petty pickpocket to make a little extra money. After all, his brother Now was a slave of the guild, so he could not be present at home all the time. Ophelia decided that she would use Now as a hostage so that Now would do her bidding. Ta Now continued to insist that he could not carry out this order and kill a member of the imperial family. The princess was upset because this plan of hers failed. She decided that she must force him to submit at any cost. The princess was also surprised by the behavior of Yuta, who behaved quite naturally here, even though he had been a prisoner in the tower for so long. An idea occurred to Her Highness. She said that she was tired and would sit down, and Ute could go for a walk nearby at this time. The boy wanted to ask permission to leave again, but he did not agree and received cotton candy as a gift. Ophelia said that he should not address her by name here, so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Her Highness warned Jut not to go too far alone. The sister tied the young man's scarf and explained that it had gotten colder. The little boy was very surprised and began to worry that she intended to leave him on the street. Ophelia waved at him and told him to have a good time and not worry about anything else. Ute was still worried and said that he had to go. He thought that most of the time he didn't understand his sister's behavior. Now the princess was free and wondered where Nigh was. Ute remembered that Shauna had given him some money before leaving. 5 shillings. The boy was happy and decided that he could have fun at the festival with this money. Ute was lost in guesses where he should go, and suddenly a boy turned to him and asked if he needed flowers. The young salesman began to persuade the young man to buy flowers for only 5 shillings. This young seller was now Nigh's brother. He added that after buying flowers, Ute will be able to give them to someone and make them happy. Ute wondered why he needed flowers. Ophelia turned when she heard someone calling her sister. She was surprised that it was Ute, and at the same time saddened that he returned so quickly, and she did not even have time to find Nigh. Her Highness remembered how she had asked him not to call her princess, but she did not expect that he would call her sister. The girl asked, "Did he really come back so quickly?" Jut gave the princess flowers and said he had just bought them for her. Ophelia said they smelled good. The boy was confused, but thanked his sister for letting him go for a walk. The princess replied that he would still have to study economics when they returned. She began to explain and said that if he is buying flowers in exchange for a scarf, then the math is wrong, because the scarf costs 400 gold. Ute questioned, and the girl specified that he would study everything more thoroughly upon his return. The young man noticed that this scarf had disappeared and began to think, where could he have lost it? Ute remembered the little boy who was selling flowers and the stout man next to him who called Nigh to show the flowers to the buyer. The small trader offered to look. Ute remembered everything and began to shout that it was Nigh from whom he bought flowers. Ophelia was very surprised in her mind that he was seeing him. The boy planned that they could just go and find him now, but Ophelia interrupted him. The princess still could not believe that it was Nigh who robbed her brother. Her Highness proposed that they should go together, but regretted that she could not catch up with him. She was angry that she actually came here to meet Nigh, but not in this way. Jut saw the thief and shouted that he was the child. He started shouting and accusing him of stealing his things, but in the next moment Ophelia and Jute froze in surprise. They heard cries for help. Nigh was lying on the floor and screaming for someone to help him. The princess and her brother stood in front of the stocky man. Ophelia remembered that she had already seen this giant in a past life. He robbed young Nigh. He made Nigh steal and then took everything for himself. Kremez turned to Nigh and asked him why he chose Ute. He turned to Ophelia and Ute and assured them that he would teach the little one, and they could go. The young man guessed that the giant was lying. He began to think that the princess had given him this scarf, and the boy was screaming for help. The burly man began to demand that Nigh hand over the scarf, but he stubbornly resisted, held the scarf tightly, and shouted that he would be able to save his brother in this way. Ophelia guessed what the matter was. Turns out he met her when he was being chased to collect money he didn't want to give because of his brother. The girl did not know what to do next and turned to Yuta. At that time, the brother thought about whether he could stand up for the little one, because the princess was nearby. Ophelia once again addressed the boy by name. What should they do with this guy, she wondered. Yut said that in his opinion stealing is not good, but leaving him here by himself is also not good. He added that it would be bad if this child got hurt. Ophelia replied that he was a good boy. The princess began to call the guard loudly. She gave the order that they should force that wretch to beg for pardon. Yut was surprised and asked if the guards were following them. The princess replied that she was anxious that he should not feel embarrassed, so she ordered them to hide until she called them. Ophelia approached Nigh and asked if he could get up. In her mind, she hoped that he would be grateful to her. She held out her hand to him. Ophelia was glad in her mind that it was Yut who helped her get closer to Nigh. Stammering, Nigh thanked the girl for helping him. The princess reported that the boy fell asleep because he was tired. She wondered if he was really a good-looking boy, or if it was just because of his brother. Her Highness was pleased that Nigh was now in her hands. Now was angry and did not hold back his emotions. Ophelia told him to calm down. She decided that she needed to prepare for the next step. She asked her slave if he now agreed to kill her as she asked, or was he going to die here with his brother? The young man regretfully said that there was nothing he could do while Nigh was with her. He said that he would be her servant forever, and assured that he would be there for the rest of his days. Ophelia noted that her plan had worked. She said he should kill her with just one blow and do it as neatly as possible. The princess promised to tell the details later, and now replied that he would obey her. She thought Now was quite naive. Ophelia offered to leave the room so as not to disturb Nigh. Her Highness took something out of a drawer and told the young man to take it. Now wondered what she gave him. The princess explained that it was a precious engagement ring made of precious stones. It can help change a person's appearance. The girl said that from now on she would call the slave Sir Philip, and he should stick to his new identity and be careful. Now asked if he could ask Her Highness a question. Ophelia asked, "What is the essence of the question?" The young man said that he thought a lot when he was alone. He asked why a person who has everything should die. Ophelia was confused and said that she would like to explain everything to Now, but later Her Highness corrected herself and called him Philip. The maids wondered why this happened on their shift. They were worried that if the princess found out, they would be killed. Ophelia informed the two boys that Nigh would be living in the armory from this day forward. She told Yut to make friends. The girl added that she has someone to introduce them to. Ophelia told Yut that from now on this man would serve him. She introduced the stranger as Philip. The young man also said that his name is Philip. The girl noted that thanks to magic, he became a completely different person, and that is wonderful. Yut doubted that this thin and weak young man at first sight could serve him. The essence of Now spoke, addressing the little prince that he would do whatever he ordered. Ophelia made a remark to Philip, because now he is not a mercenary but a servant, so he should make it look simpler. The young man apologized and said that he was just not used to it yet. He thanked the little prince and Naya, but Yut replied that it was unnecessary. Ophelia dreamed about the next events of the novel. The festival is over, but winter will soon come, which means that the emperor will die. That's when the plot of the original story will begin, and the future in which Ophelia must die 100%. But now she was doing everything to prevent a terrible death at the hands of Yuta. Now must kill her. Philip asked Her Highness what happened to Nigh. He clarified that it does not seem at all that he was left in the palace because of threats. The girl replied that he had been left here as Yutu's companion. It was a home and a guarantee of safety for Nigh, and he was also promised a large sum of money so that his brother would no longer work hard. Ophelia asked if she had taken better care of him. Philip told her not to joke like that because he was still a child. The young man began to threaten that if she harmed Naya, Ophelia interrupted him and began to joke that he would then kill her for that, which she needed. Philip asked Her Highness to be more serious. Then strange things began to happen, and the young man shouted, calling the princess. He protected Ophelia, and she screamed out of surprise and fright. Philip asked what kind of smoke it was and regarded it as the smell of the princess. But the princess objected but did not explain what seemed so obvious to her. Ophelia guessed that only one person could use such magic. Amy approached, apologizing to Her Highness and saying that they had warned the uninvited guest that they did not want to see him here. She also admitted that while the princess and prince were at the festival, Lord Kirsten came and cast a spell on the garden. Philip was annoyed by what he heard and said that they should catch this magician immediately. Ophelia assured him that this was not an attempted assassination, but just a gift from a guest. The young man did not calm down and said that such a step on his part was a declaration of war. The princess warned him to look under his feet. The boy tried to catch the hare and shouted that he needed to do it. At the same time, Ophelia understood that now was right. Kirsten would not give up. He would continue his actions. He will give gifts to draw attention to him. The girl worried that if he was always around, various rumors would appear, but probably that's what he wants. Her Highness noted that the bunny was extremely cute. She asked Kirsten why he keeps coming to her. Ophelia suddenly decided to visit Erhard's estate, although before that she categorically refused to go there. The maid wondered what she wanted as they drove. Her Highness was informed that they had arrived at the scene. She was already being watched from the window. Ophelia and Amy went to the estate. The princess came to Kirsten but had a doubt. Was it a mistake? A voice was heard in the palace, asking if the princess had arrived, and she was ordered to be taken to the drawing room. Kirsten was taking a bath at that time. Ophelia assured herself that it all really looked like a mistake. As she waited for him in the living room, she had thoughts running through her mind about what his true intentions were for her. But maybe it was necessary to continue to ignore him. The girl remembered past lives when he betrayed her by sending her to be executed to take the throne, and worried that he wanted to do it again. She wondered what kind of person he was. Ophelia realized that she knew Yuta well from his past roles, but not at all the princess. Therefore, probably, Kirsten had no other choice but to go against the princess. Kirsten entered the living room, who was glad that Her Highness had visited him. The princess guessed that he always wanted power, and she didn't understand why she hadn't noticed it before. Kirsten must have been hiding it well, she decided, but she told him to dry himself because he always looked flawless. The young man assured that he would have prepared better for the meeting if she had warned about her visit earlier. He asked why such a beautiful lady visited them in the middle of the night. Ophelia was angered by this because he himself had never warned in advance of his arrival. The princess regretfully thought that he was ruling her as he pleased, but she said that she came with a request, but not to him but to Sir Asad. Asad Erhard was Kirsten's older brother. The older brother was very surprised why the princess was looking for him and not Kirsten. Ophelia admitted that she had heard of Asad's excellent martial arts skills and would like to ask him to become the prince's swordsmanship teacher. The young man said that it was a great honor for him. A disappointed Kirsten asked if she had come all this way just for this. He suggested that they continue the conversation in the living room, where it was safer. Ophelia admitted that she had recently faced danger. She remembered the scene of buying flowers from Nigh at the festival. Therefore, she realized that she will not be able to avoid dangerous situations all the time. The girl compared them to a sword. The princess clarified that everything depends on how to resist them. She suddenly screamed, not being able to lift the sword from the floor. She was disappointed because she thought the sword would be much lighter. Kirsten noted that sword owners should be very careful and consider all the risks. Ophelia admitted to herself that she could not underestimate the magic in this case. Asad said that these were good words and promised to give the princess a dagger. Kirsten, in turn, suggested that it would be better to get down to business. Ophelia said that she had nothing more to do, so she had to go. She also apologized for the late visit. Kirsten did not agree that the princess would leave so quickly. He said that he will not be deceived by the lady anymore, and she can say whatever she wants. The princess noticed that he acted very cunningly, but she still cannot confess to him what she feels. Ophelia admitted that the prince also needed a general subjects teacher. After all, she decided that it would be better to keep Kirsten under surveillance. The Lord said he agreed to teach him and would do so according to Her Highness's wishes. The girl thought that the dagger should also always be at hand. The princess added that there was one more matter. Kirsten asked ironically, what else did she need? She said there was something only Kirsten could do, Erhard. She wondered, can he revive these flowers and cast a preservation spell on them? The young man clarified, is it lavender? Her Highness said that these flowers are simple, but dear to her as a precious and memorable gift. As Kirsten used her magic, a warm glow appeared. It brought back fond memories to Ophelia. The young man asked permission to say a few words, because he had a different opinion on the matter. The girl asked what he meant. Ophelia began to hysterically ask what is going on here. Kirsten clarified that there is no method to control the dangerous object. He added that the bigger and more precious the gift, the better. The princess told him not to send any more of his gifts. The young man asked the reason for such a refusal. He gave her the sword and said that now this thing is hers. Kirsten said Her Highness deserved the best, but he, unlike the one who gives her only flowers, can afford much more expensive gifts. The lord added that the more valuable the gift, the more expensive it is for a person. Ophelia said she had one more condition. She asked not to draw any more attention to the imperial palace. Soon the princess noticed that since that day, Kirsten had become almost invisible. This caused her excitement. She decided that she should keep an eye on him, because she did not know his intentions. An imperial state meeting was held in the palace. Duke Sarkart was Ophelia's maternal grandfather. He asked if the girl enjoyed the festival and recommended that she now take up government affairs. The princess asked what important thing should she do and decide today. He reported that recently a group of healers worked in the slums of the city. Sarkart clarified that, according to rumors, this group heals people by tearing their bodies apart and then sewing them together with threads. The princess thought that they were doctors and said that their number should be increased. Grandfather was not satisfied with such an answer of Her Highness. He said that these people should be destroyed because all treatment should be received only from the priest in the temple. Ophelia wondered if he really meant that only the wealthy and prominent would be treated. She decided that it was better not to deal with these matters, but to think about the answer to Kirsten. Her Highness was distracted by other matters, and they began to ask her if she was listening to the report. Meanwhile, in the yard, the maid found the prince, who was hiding from Nigh, and he was looking for him and calling. The worker told Ute that he should return to the palace, because now he has a history lesson with Lord Kirsten. Ute had a bad feeling that day. In class, Kirsten talked about the wisdom of the West and the East. Ute guessed who was in front of him. He remembered the day when his sister got very nervous when she heard his name. And now this person has become his teacher. The prince decided that he urgently needed to find out whether this was an order from the princess herself. He turned to Sir Assad. Jut said he knows Sir Kirsten is a mage, so maybe he bewitched the princess? The boy told the prince that he was Assad Erhard and Kirsten is his younger brother. Ophelia, everything himself, but he had not seen Her Highness since the day of the festival. Piled up on the princess, the advisors shouted at her to draw up a balance sheet and many other things. The prince thus wondered why his sister introduced him to Nigh and what he means to her. He decided that they could be half-brothers. Jut thought that now they will have to compete with each other so that the weaker one leaves. The prince stood up and intended to leave the lesson. The teacher asked if he was uncomfortable, and he replied that he was just not in the mood. Shauna found him in the garden and asked what he was doing here. She asked why he left in the middle of class, and assumed he did so to avoid dining alone with Her Highness. Ute remembered that the princess had indeed said that they would dine together, but now Nigh would probably be joining them as well. He didn't understand why the princess still considered him her enemy. Shauna informed that lunch will be in the kindergarten. The prince noticed the flowers he had given Her Highness. Amy confirmed that it was indeed them, and added that Ophelia had asked Lord Kirsten to put a preservation charm on them. Ute wondered what his sister was up to. Ophelia, meanwhile, in the meeting room asked them to finish their work for today, because the prince is already waiting for her. She added that this is a problem child. Sarkart quickly caught up with her. The princess understood that she had to choose. Or will she continue her conversation with such a prominent politician and duke, as well as a relative on her mother's side, or will she dine with Ute, who is to kill her in the future? The victory was for Utah. The princess decided that she should leave here as soon as possible. Ute wondered why the sister kept the flowers at all, and also promised to always have lunch together from now on. He heard footsteps and shouted that the princess had come. They were maids together with Nigh. They reported that the princess had some business, so she asked him to have dinner with Nigh. The boy wished the little prince bon appetit. Ophelia was glad that she managed to get away from the duke, but at that moment someone came to the living room. So now she was worried and regretted that she had left the two of them. The princess stopped in front of the grand palace of the God of Honor. She wondered why she was here. Before that, in the living room of her palace, a stranger said that he had not seen Her Highness for a long time. The guest really surprised Ophelia. That guest turned out to be Sir Assad Erhard, who introduced himself. Her Highness asked what brought him to their imperial meeting today. The girl was disturbed by the fact that Duke Sarkart, a prominent political figure, himself asked for a meeting with Assad. She was worried that this young man might become part of Duke Sarkart's luxurious dinner, so she decided that she should shut him up before he said anything more. Ophelia addressed Sir Assad by name. In response, he asked why she came to their estate so late then. She was not ready to hear about such frank requests, and even in the presence of other people. Duke Sarkart thought about what he heard. The princess was upset that everything became known and asked Sir Asid why he came to them. The young man said that he would very much like to show Her Highness all the grandeur of the Grand Palace. Ophelia agreed to go on an excursion just now. As they walked, Asid informed the princess that the wind was getting stronger. The girl thought, why all this? She understood that the Erhard family was not interested in politics, and therefore he wanted to be a member of the love scandal with the princess. The young man assured Ophelia that he meant something completely different. She said she was glad he understood. He dared to say that the princess had a leaf in her head, and he wanted to help remove it. Asid admitted to the princess that it was difficult for him to communicate with people, because besides Kirsten's stupid brother and fencing lessons, there was no one and nothing else in his life. Ophelia replied that he didn't need to apologize. She suggested that he take his coat and move on. He said she could leave him. The young man said that Her Highness had a pale complexion. The lady was nervous that it was really so noticeable. Then Asid told them to go, because the patriarch was waiting for them. Ophelia did not understand why the patriarch wanted to see her. She agreed to go on this excursion only to escape from Duke Socrates. The patriarch asked Her Highness if she would let those doctors go so easily. The princess was upset and decided that the meeting would continue. She was told that she should take responsibility for their arrest. Asid offered her tea. That girl sat in thought. What should she do next? She understood that the priest had sided with the aristocrats, but she could not go against them. Although she kept Now by her side, she was still not sure of the development of the next events. Ophelia said that the imperial palace would encourage doctors. The patriarch said that this could cause opposition and wanted to know the reason for such a decision. The princess replied that she was not obliged to explain it. She also added that she will always stand her ground regardless of the consequences, because she understood that even if she pleases them, they will still obey Yuta. The princess clarified that people need doctors and they should provide them. She understood that she would face a lot of criticism, but she heard how the patriarch laughed and said that he understood. The priest added that Her Highness seemed to him to be a beautiful person. Ophelia was very surprised by this. Asid rejoiced and told the patriarch that Her Highness had not let them down. He admitted that he always considered her a kind and gentle person, but not everyone can understand her. He returned to the princess and said that he and the patriarch supported her idea. The young man also said that he heard from Nigh how the princess helped him a lot. Ophelia denied that she was not good at all, explaining that an evil person cannot become good by doing just one good deed. She has noticed that lately she often wants to sleep and has a fast heart rate. This is the only feeling she has. Asid reassured her and told her that the child she saved on the street thought she was a good person. The princess did not think this was a sufficient argument, because she considered Nigh to be an intelligent boy, but too naive, who believes all people. But at the same time, Ophelia understood that there was not a single person who would consider her an unkind person. At tea, the princess asked the patriarch what she was doing. He replied that it was herbal tea, which one of the guests treated him to. He decided that the princess looked too tired. The priest also asked if he should call her escort, but the girl refused. Instead, Ophelia asked to send for the priest to the imperial palace. She has a business with him. She saw her reflection in the tea and got angry. The girl decided that she really needed to sleep. After all, her true emotions come out. Those present said that they would leave and she could rest. She remembered the days in the distant past when she cried constantly. Now she decided to rest so that all bad thoughts left her head, or she locked them in the tower. She imagined a tower even higher than the one in which Jut was a prisoner. She was saddened and pitied Ute because he had gone through so much pain and suffering, and it was all because of her. In this way, she simply soothed herself and prepared for her imminent death. But someone was standing under the window. In her mind, Ophelia begged Yuta's forgiveness. Asid watched her. Her Highness heard footsteps and someone addressing her. The younger Lord Erhard informed them that they needed to return to the palace. At that time, a young man was walking down the street and was shouted at to stand still. One of the men shouted that he did not dare to ignore him. The young man who walked quickly was Isaac Bellerevin. He continued to be yelled at and called a commoner who could not do such a thing to the Duke himself, who studied at the academy and knew 3 languages. Asid asked Ophelia for permission to take her home. On the street in the same place, Isaac was called nothing. The young man and the princess became involuntary witnesses of that picture, but did not pay attention. The princess was upset that she still didn't manage to get out of the house in time to finish her errands, in time to have lunch with Ute. She hoped the children had gone out to play after dinner and wondered if she should go and check on them. Ophelia thought that Ute was happy and having a good time with Nigh. She was sure that these two boys got along well with each other. But she saw another picture and wondered how it was possible. She couldn't understand what happened here while she was gone. Jut was angry, because the princess promised that she would have dinner with him on time. Ophelia asked the boys if they had dinner yet. The prince addressed Her Highness. Here the younger brother of the princess realized that she never breaks her promises, and this time also did everything possible to be on time. She asked Yuta if he liked the boy Nigh. The princess understood Yuta's mood and was worried that he might make a fuss, so she decided to calm him down. She said it was okay to miss an afternoon class. She asked the children if they would like to have tea with her. Yut turned around and answered with a refusal. He explained that he needed to do homework from Sir Kirsten. The girl was surprised. Ophelia did not understand such a reaction and blamed it all because of her, and she just wanted to be together. Distraught, Nigh asked what he should do now. The princess did not understand and asked again. Nigh replied that he looked very upset and asked if it was because of him. Ophelia thought that this is human nature. The princess thought, is Ute jealous? But she decided that this cannot be. He is simply still afraid to get close to her. Nigh admitted that during lunch, Ute kept looking at his watch and waiting for his sister. The boy added that Her Highness should apologize to the prince, because every longing has its own reason, and this case is no exception. He added that she had no choice but to resolve the matter herself. Ophelia wondered if he was just a 10-year-old boy. She wondered if Ute was really jealous or if Nigh just misunderstood. She was upset because, in her opinion, she seemed to have taken everything into account to follow the plan. Her Highness was informed that the meeting with the aristocrats would continue this afternoon. The girl thought that Ute was to blame for everything. Ophelia decided that she would not allow him to disturb her routine now. The princess asked Kirsten if he had cancelled classes for today. The young man replied that after dinner there would be classes with Sir Asad because physical activity is also important. Kirsten suggested that Her Highness take the flowers. Ophelia replied that she would not accept anything from him because she had already told him about it. The young man replied that this refusal breaks his heart, but he does not know how to show her his sincere feelings. He asked Her Highness why she was always so cold to him. Ophelia asked Sir Kirsten what brought him here. She added that he always complains that she is unfriendly to him, but still comes to her. Sir began his frank conversation. Kirsten asked the princess to come closer. Ophelia was unpleasantly surprised by such a request. The young man assured that he would tell everything and asked him to listen carefully. The princess was worried that it might be a trap. She hoped that he was not capable of harming Her Highness. Kirsten replied, "How dare he act like that?" He asked permission to finish his conversation. The young man began to tell about the reason why he wanted to see the princess. The girl noticed the strange look of the interlocutor. Ophelia was surprised by Kirsten's next actions and asked if he was all right. He replied that he was fine. The girl screamed that she was in pain. Sir Kirsten apologized and said he would tell more later. Suddenly he disappeared, and Ophelia guessed that he had used a teleportation spell. She was worried if he was okay. After all, it was the first time she'd seen him so strange. In the original plot of the novel, Yuta's childhood was described as a series of identical days where he was always alone. That is why now he needs love and care, and his sister is jealous of Nigh. Ophelia understood that she could not give him this love. She must keep her distance at all costs. The girl patted Ute on the head and heard him calling for his mother. He continued to call his mother and cry in his sleep. The princess mentally felt sorry for the boy. The next day, Ute went for a walk and noticed that today was a beautiful sunny day. He remembered that he had a beautiful dream last night, so he is in a good mood now. The prince noticed that he had pain in the chest area, but expressed hope that everything would be fine today. He decided that he had to go because the lesson was about to start soon. Jut saw the sleeping princess and was very surprised. He was afraid that she would not move and assumed that she might be dead. The prince also noticed that she looked pale. Suddenly, the boy fell to the ground and screamed. He was worried that he would wake her up. Ophelia woke up and asked what happened. Ute admitted that he thought the princess was not breathing. It was strange to him how scared he was for her. Her Highness said that classes would begin soon. She recommended that he talk to Nigh if he had any questions. The prince was upset that it was about Naya again. He suddenly felt the pain in his chest again. Ophelia said that he did not have to do what she advised him to do. She also added that it will hurt less in that place if he finds friends. Jut was surprised that the princess knew about his pain in that place and asked about it. The sister replied that everyone feels such pain at some point. She said she can't always be there, so he has to find people he can trust. She admitted that Yut is the closest person to her. Ophelia concluded in her mind that he would always be her younger brother, no matter what people said. She voiced it to him. Her Highness told him to go because he would be late for class. Yut left and told his sister to rest. The boy walked and thought that he did not expect the lady to call him a younger brother. He decided that Her Highness was also suffering from a similar chest pain. In the history lesson, it was said that always in the history of the Empire, happy families worked together. Even if close people were enemies, they united to do one thing. Kirsten read a phrase from the book, "Everything sees you is not everything," and asked to try to understand it. Yut repeated these words in his mind and he thought that he could disturb the princess because she has everything she wants in life. The prince suggested that she might also be suffering from ice shards. Sir Kirsten said that they were done with that phrase and warned that after the break they would go to the main class. Jut decided that he needed to eat a lot of sugar because it was good for his brain. Sir said that this dessert is the signature dish of the Empire. Nigh admitted that he was happy because he was able to taste the various desserts of the Empire. The teacher added that it was thanks to the princess that peace reigned in the Empire. Kirsten said they would find out about all that when they got to that part of the program. But he said that her skills are surprising. She acts faster than time passes, so people sometimes disagree with her laws. Nigh agreed that she was an amazing person. Sir also agreed that she is a nice person, even if people don't understand it yet. At that moment, Yut thought that she was just perfect, and he was sure of it. But Nigh admitted that he thinks she looks like she's going to disappear soon. He saw Yut's frightened reaction and asked why he was so tensed because it could just show to him. Jut replied that Ophelia was always looking somewhere far away. Nigh confirmed that the prince was telling the truth, but they were all surprised that he had even spoken to them for the first time. The prince guessed that she might feel better if he thought about his friends. Kirsten said that they will have a test after the break. Seeing how nervous the prince was, he added that they would easily deal with him if they listened carefully to everything. Jut turned to Sir Kirsten to ask him something. He asked the teacher if the princess had a close friend whom she could trust. Nigh began to scream because all the documents and paper began to fly in the classroom. Kirsten replied that there was a friend in Her Highness. Jut noticed that Sir Kirsten's eyes had changed color. The teacher said that this friend is Isaac Bellereven. The patriarch shouted at the stranger's back and demanded that he stop. Suddenly he fell to the floor. The patriarch sat and made remarks to someone who wanted to step on the old man. A man behind the priest asked him to preserve his honor. The strange man, who was being chased by the priest, said that he was going to earn a living and did not understand why the patriarch was shouting like that. The patriarch called him a scoundrel. This stranger turned out to be the priest Isaac Bellereven. The patriarch said that a priest cannot look like that. Isaac announced that he would leave the post of priest today. The patriarch began to demand that he immediately remove this strange mask. The man said that he did not want to hold this position anymore. The old patriarch began to wonder how he could even contact such a person at such an age. He began to ask what the young man was going to do next. Isaac replied that he would become a doctor. The young man said that he feels a certain knack for this, and added that he is an adult and can decide everything himself. The patriarch said that he was already old for such conversations and threatened that the boy would leave the temple only because of his corpse, as there is no faith in that. Isaac admitted that he is still working on her and that he needs time. To his surprise, the patriarch thanked him for this and said he had one request for him. He reported that the princess needed a priest, so he ordered the young man to go to the imperial palace. But he replied that he hates this place. But the patriarch objected and said that it was wrong, because the princess is the only one who protects doctors. He recommended that he go to the palace and be on her side, then he will not have any problems. The old man swore that this was his last request to him. The patriarch lamented that this was a difficult child, but he also admitted that he has as much divine power as no one else. That is why he is sorry, because he would be the best next patriarch. Sir Assad, who visited the patriarch, asked why he hates the temple so much. After all, it was the famous priest Isaac. The minister said he would tell him about it next time. Assad thought it would be good to know the reasons. The students took their first test to Sir Kirsten. Prince Jut thought that he had written it well because he had practiced it well and it contained the topic they had studied yesterday. Sir Kirsten said that he checked the prince's answers and asked if he really understood the phrase, "All will see you is not all." The boy replied that he understood everything as he taught them. The teacher asked if he really understood her, because his mother, the death of Sitara, and the rumors about Her Highness. Are they somehow connected? He added, was the death of his mother Sitara connected with the rumors about Her Highness? The prince admitted that he did not think about it at all, because he was a prisoner and did not have enough time to figure it out. Kirsten remarked that if he were in his place, he would spend more time paying attention to it. Yut wondered why he was asking this. Is this also a test? Sir explained that he simply thought about it from a completely different angle. Little Nigh thought it had happened again, the battle of wits between Kirsten and Yut. He wished in his mind that they would do it somewhere else. At one time, Nigh received a letter from his older brother, warning him to stay away from these imperial families. The boy asked the prince if this test was difficult for him. He answered that yes. Nigh was glad that he was finally answered and thought that it was because of his calmness. Also, he thought, does the prince think that only he has a sister? After all, Naya also has a brother at home. The little boy remembered his brother with pity. He replaced his parents, who died, and now he works a lot and hard. Philip approached him in the yard, and Nigh was afraid that he had done something bad. He didn't understand why the prince's guards were following him. The boy was offended because the young man pushed him, but Philip told him that he had something in his pocket. I didn't expect to see chocolate there. He cried out and asked who could have put him there. The young man admitted that life in the palace was not as easy as it seemed to him. The boy Nigh was sitting, and it seemed to him that everything around him was tense. Yes, as if Sir Kirsten had come. He decided he didn't like Her Highness, even despite his determination. The teacher called the boy by name. The little one was confused and turned to Sir Kirsten. He replied that he can be called simply a teacher. Nigh noted that he does not feel hatred towards his teacher. In his opinion, something was troubling him. Kirsten said that he checked the boy's answers on the test. Did he not understand the importance of learning? He asked. The little one grabbed his head and decided that he had been exposed. He replied that if he ever went outside the palace, he would be able to give advice and count the number of loaves of bread. The teacher asked for his hand, and I was glad that it was chocolate again. Kirsten said that considering the amount of sweets he eats, he is capable of more than counting bread. The teacher closed his eyes and was about to say something, but Nigh decided that he was not mistaken, and that was it. Sir did not understand this reaction, but his eyes changed in a strange way, and the boy noticed it. He started to call Nigh, but he was already running away, full of confidence that he was not mistaken. The boy was frightened and understood that he could not hide on the territory of the palace, but he remembered the back door used by the maids. Suddenly he bumped into the princess and they both screamed. Ophelia asked Naya, "Why is he here?" In response, the boy also asked what she was doing here, but he added that now it is more important to deal with the teacher. Her Highness clarified, was it about Kirsten? The guy replied that he was possessed. Nigh began to tell that a neighbor had told him that the eyes are the mirror of the soul, and the color of his eyes has changed, so he is a devil. Ophelia said that there is a legend about it, by the way. Nigh was surprised because he did not expect her to believe him. He admitted that he was very scared when he saw it. He added that only the representatives of God, the priests, could drive away this evil, but he had never seen them. The boy apologized to Her Highness and asked if she was really worried about his teacher, Sir Kirsten, as he thought she was. Ophelia was surprised and told him that he really understood the situation. She assured him that everything was fine. The girl added that she would take care of her feelings, but first of all, she must be confident in her actions. The princess remarked to Naya that he should take his studies more seriously and asked if he was not interested in her at all. He answered that it is so. The boy considered himself a fool. Her Highness promised that she would not pawn it, but added that the knowledge was very useful. Nigh took 3 chocolates from his pocket and offered Her Highness. Ophelia heard a man enter the palace and say that he was a priest. He added that he came here because the princess called him. The princess told Nigh that he should go. The boy was upset and decided that she was waiting for someone. He asked if she wasn't going to go too. Her Highness replied that she had to do something. Ophelia asked Nigh that if the devil does something to Sir Kirsten, then they should call someone for help. The boy thought about what it all meant and remembered the words of his brother, who asked him not to pay attention to anything here. But he mentally noted that Ophelia looked happy now. Nigh wondered what she was thinking. It also seemed to him that she was smiling as if she would soon disappear. But at the same time, he was sure that she would cope with everything. According to Nigh, everything will be as the princess herself wants. The princess asked the guest if he was the priest Isaac Bellavarian. The girl introduced herself as Princess Ophelia Dine Rydania. She also thanked him for accepting her invitation. Ophelia noted that even in front of such an infamous princess as her, he kept a good face. Her Highness reported that the imperial palace had become noisy because of the children. The girl said that he only had to check their health. The young man was surprised and asked if he had heard about the children. She decided for herself that even if Kirsten did something, she could find a solution that would relieve her of all worries. She only needed painkillers from the priest. Ophelia's thoughts were that she did not know how she would die, hanged or buried alive, but she needed medicine to not feel any of that. Therefore, Isaac must fully trust her in order for her to get what she needs from him. It seemed to the princess that she had sufficiently impressed him even at the first meeting. Ophelia decided it was time to put on a show. She thought that she would not leave the palace until the medicine was ready. Isaac asked the princess what she knew about him. While Ophelia was choosing words, the young man said that this was their first meeting, and it was quite surprising that she knew his name. The girl got out of the way and said that a priori she should know the names of all the guests of the palace. Isaac agreed with this answer, but the lady saw how tense he was. The young man remarked to Her Highness that she should not sleep here. Ophelia asked if he wasn't bored, and he replied that of course not. He added ironically that he was the princess's last shred of conscience, so she should listen to his rants while he was still here. The princess was surprised and decided for herself that if he does not make the medicine in time, she will show him this. Isaac looked around in surprise and noticed that this was the famous imperial palace. The priest examined Prince Yuta and concluded that he was 136 centimeters tall, 32 kilograms, and all the signs of nutritional imbalance were visible from the outside. About Nigh, he wrote that he is 133 centimeters, 30 kilograms, and has rather fragile bones. Isaac said that the boys are significantly smaller than their peers. Yut thought that he was still taller than Nigh, but still quite small. Nigh was upset that he was the smallest in the place. Isaac reassured them that they were at the age when children grow up fast. Therefore they should eat well, sleep well, and exercise enough. He added that then they will be able to grow up quickly. Ophelia watched over them and decided that maybe now was the time she could ask him for the medicine. She called Isaac to come with her because she wanted to tell him something in secret. The priest asked in surprise. Yut reflected that he thought she was like all adults, open, and she has her skeletons in the closet. He was worried that it was Isaac who appeared. The maids thought he might be her secret lover. The prince did not expect that they would think that he was her secret lover. Isaac asked Ophelia, does she want him to make poison? She asked, isn't it a pain reliever? But mentally she got angry. Why does he call it poison? The young man remembered the words of the patriarch, who assured him that Her Highness was the only one who would be able to protect the doctors. He said that it is still poison. He asked, did Her Highness not know that the nobles used poison to create painkillers? The girl embarrassedly replied that she did not know. Isaac told Her Highness that he would not help her kill other people. He respects her right to burn them or boil them alive, but without his help. The princess had already admitted that she enjoyed her secret meeting with the man from the temple. One of the maids made a remark to Amy. How could she say such a thing to the Prince of Utah? Amy replied that he might be interested. Yut replied that there was some. According to her, Ophelia was then with a real handsome man with golden hair. Rumors spread really fast. The maid admitted that it was the priest Isaac from the same temple. Nigh told Amy that it all sounded pretty strange. The boy said that he was already alone with Her Highness and thinks that then she just came to see the priest Isaac. Amy started screaming and proving herself right. Yut looked alarmed. He asked them to stop carrying this delusion and said that they had no right to discuss the personal life of the princess. The prince asked Philip to add something. The young man was puzzled and asked why him at once. The boy clarified that he is often close to Her Highness. Philip admitted that he was not very interested in it. He said he had never heard anything like that from the princess herself, especially about the wedding. He also heard these rumors from the maid. Yut could not contain his anger. Kirsten heard about the wedding and asked if she was the one who told them about it. He added that rumors of such a plan always spread around the district. Amy suggested that her secret lover might be someone else. The other girl was confused because she had no idea that Sir Kirsten was here. Yut was worried that Her Highness might get married soon. Kirsten added that they get along well with each other. He asked, where are they now? He asked Philip once more where Her Highness and her lover were just now. Philip declared that he thought the princess had gone to the garden with the priest. Amy asked why he wanted to disturb them. Kirsten believed that the rumors about her love affair exist only because of political aspects. But he wondered why it was a priest. Did she really love him, he wondered? Isaac informed Ophelia that this poison was different from those known to aristocrats. The young man said that he had no idea how to do it. The princess said that he must have misunderstood her and clarified that she did not need the poison to kill. Kirsten unexpectedly appeared, apologizing to Her Highness. She asked the teacher why he is here. Ophelia was worried that he had so much determination. Kirsten turned to Isaac and told him to follow Her Highness's orders and prepare the poison as she requested. The girl wondered how he could know Isaac. Sir offered the princess to go with him and assured that he would be able to prepare poison for her. Kirsten gripped the princess's hand quite tightly. Ophelia was angry and wondered what he was even thinking about. The dark-haired youth asked, what did he say wrong? Her Highness demanded that he say how he knew Isaac? She asked who gave him permission to speak on her behalf anyway? Ophelia remembered her hand injury. She told Kirsten that even if he is very talented, that doesn't give him the right to test her patience. Sir was embarrassed and began to make excuses. Ophelia thought she was confused by his eyes. After all, in past lives, she had never seen them change color. So she decided that this was direct evidence of his reincarnation, and he also decided to bond with her, since he has memories from his past life. Ophelia turned and announced that she was returning to the palace. She said they would talk next time. Isaac agreed, and Kirsten asked, when will this next time come? He started shouting, why should he wait for her at all? But the princess thought that if this was a sign of reincarnation, then her eyes should also have changed color. She asked if Kirsten really wanted to hear the answer. For several days in a row, Philip assumed that Kirsten must be desperate. Ophelia replied that she was not interested in it at all. She noted in her mind that it was unpleasant for her to talk to him, although before they talked about everything in the world. Philip clarified that the rumors differ. He told how one maid was returning and heard someone crying. It was then that the rumors appeared in his opinion. From her words, the fair-haired young man knocked on the door and asked to be heard. Ophelia asked, what kind of rumors are these? Philip warned Ophelia to be closer to teacher Kirsten than to Isaac. Ophelia asked about the reason and why Isaac is here at all. Kirsten under any circumstances. She also added, still annoyed, that the guard should learn the rules of playing chess because it is no use. Outside Her Highness's door, someone said that he wanted to see her. The princess guessed that it was Kirsten's voice and noted that he was too stubborn. The girl still wanted to explain something to Philip, but noticed that he had already left. Ophelia knew she didn't want to see Kirsten now precisely because he might disrupt her plan. That was the real reason, not because he betrayed her in a past life. She was angry that this wizard was behaving so defiantly, and Kirsten said that he came to her to apologize. The princess was very surprised by this and asked again. He confirmed and asked her to let him in. Sir Kirsten began apologizing to Her Highness for his actions. He admitted that he himself does not understand the reason for his behavior. He admitted that he was too arrogant and said that he would always like to be her servant. Ophelia asked if he was sure. The young man answered in the affirmative and said that this is why he came to apologize. He admitted that he did not understand where such a strong desire to help her came from. Kirsten added that he wants to dedicate himself to the princess. But he also said that he knows that she already has a close subordinate, so he will stay in his place. Who did he mean? The princess wondered. Ophelia asked if that meant he would stop looking for ways to get closer to her. The young man replied that he would like to lie now. Kirsten admitted that she could not keep her promise. He asked the princess if it annoyed her. The princess was silent and laughed. And the teacher said that Asad also often scolds him because he behaves like a child. It seemed to the girl that Kirsten was embarrassed for the first time in his life, and she knows him as the first mage of the Empire. She immediately decided that she should keep herself in her hands and not show her emotions either. The young man asked Her Highness, is she really laughing? Ophelia imagined Asad scolding his older brother for behaving like a child. The princess replied that she was not laughing, and he denied it, but mentally noted that she was in a good mood. She admitted that she doesn't know how to control her emotions, and she would like to know how he scolds him, even though he is still angry with Sir. Kirsten replied that if she smiles, then she is no longer angry. The princess asked the teacher to promise not to bother her anymore. The young man replied that he did not want to do it. Then the girl said that she was getting angry with him. She wondered if it was possible for him to cry every night. Amy, who saw the whole painting, said it was a nice job. Ophelia thought that maybe she had just met the real Kirsten, but she understood that now was not the time to reveal these feelings. She asked Kirsten for him to keep his distance because she is a princess and he is only the prince's teacher. He promised to do his best. Ophelia said she would go first and warned Sir Kirsten to follow her as he had not been looking well lately. He thanked Her Highness for her concern. When the princess left, Kirsten noticed someone's feet in the bushes. He told the young priest that he can now go out. Kirsten turned to the beloved princess and asked him not to hide like a rat. Isaac did not understand who is the rat and who is the princess's lover. The maids discussed the latest rumors. They decided that there was a bloody fight for one flower. One worker reported that Lord Kirsten and Priest Isaac fought in the garden because of Her Highness. Someone asked who won the battle. But the answer was that the result was obvious, because it was a battle between a priest and a magician. The maid said that Lord Kirsten used his magic to make the priest fall. Another girl admitted that she knows another version of the development of events. Some of them also suggested that the priest Isaac was really so difficult to defeat. The maids continued to discuss and place bets in the battle between the priest and the magician. Philip joked to the princess and said that these boys were surprisingly popular. Ophelia decided that the workers had a lot of free time if they gossiped like that. She thought of increasing their duties so that they would not even have time to sleep. Philip told the princess that he considered this unacceptable and asked where she was going. Ophelia replied that she wanted to meet with the priest Isaac to put an end to it. The young man repeated, "Is it really about the priest Isaac?" The princess visited the library and admitted that she thought it was just a rumor. She looked at Isaac and said that Sir Kirsten had indeed beaten him. The priest asked if he really looked like a person who could start a fight for no reason. The girl thought that this was the case in her past life. Isaac added that he did not start any fights because he did not want to waste his precious time in this way. Ophelia confirmed that she believed him and knew that he would not strike first for anything. The young man wondered why she spoke as if she knew him well. He admitted to Her Highness that he had spoken with this magician Kirsten. Ophelia was very surprised by this discovery. The priest remembered the scene when the Sir called him first the lover of the princess and then a rat, and told him to stop hiding. Kirsten then told him that Her Highness's request did not concern the poison, and he was not the kind of person to hang around for long. He added that it seemed to him that the medicine the princess wanted was called anesthesia. Kirsten said she was apologizing to the priest. The maids, who were watching everything, decided that they started fighting because of the princess. Where did the rumors come from? The teacher turned to Isaac Beleverin and asked for forgiveness for the rudeness shown towards the beloved princess. The priest thought that the Sir was a very selfish person, but he still defended the princess's honor. But he can really be the thief of the century. He asked Ophelia if she really only needed anesthesia. Her Highness admitted that all she wants so much is only a sedative, that is, anesthesia. She specified that she needed medication that would take away all her feelings. The princess said that she had heard that only priests could study this substance. She also said that there could be big problems if someone were to get poisoned by the medicine. Isaac wondered how she could know so much about doctors. He thought that he had already met people who pretended to be well acquainted with doctors, especially the aristocrats of the imperial palace. According to his assessment, they were perfectly able to adapt to the situation. But he wondered if he could trust her. Ophelia said that she gave him the word of the only princess of the empire and asked him to believe her. Isaac thought that the thief of the century could be the princess of the empire. He asked why she needed anesthesia. Ophelia admitted that she just wanted to get rid of the feeling of pain, because she didn't want to feel anything. Isaac read great pain in her eyes. He compared her eyes to the look of patients praying in front of the temple for God's mercy. So the priest decided that it was unlikely that she had made it all up. He said he would take responsibility and help Her Highness. He also promised to provide laboratories and study materials. The doctor specified that he would need a 20-year-old mandrake root. A new polydactyl geyser, who was born last month, is the patient's 7th nail. The princess said that she understood and asked if he really needed all this. Philip eavesdropped around the corner. Ophelia nevertheless asked Isaac why he has such a face if there was no fight with Kirsten. The fact was that Isaac found a rare herb in the garden of the imperial palace, but he stole many herbs that were the property of the emperor. Ophelia said that now they are in the same marriage, so he can just ask her. Annoyed, Nigh shouted and appealed to Brother Philip. He tried to wake up the young man and showed where to get clothes. He added that breakfast was in Emma's maid's room. He said that he was already late and asked the child to wake him up a little earlier. Now said that Philip behaves exactly like his brother now. He admitted that at first he was afraid of him, and now everything can go first. The prince's bodyguard thought that today he should tell the princess everything. Ophelia asked Philip if he thinks she needs to increase the number of guards. The young man was confused and said that she must not have thought about it. He added that for her safety, she should keep a strong man like Kirsten near her, not a weakling like a priest. Her Highness was angry with Philip and thought that he was not intelligent enough like his younger brother. Ophelia asked Philip if he remembers the trap from which the rabbits jumped into the garden. He replied that he really remembered, and added that he also started this conversation on this occasion. The young man asked if they had caught someone who wanted to harm her. Her Highness asked him how many people he thought could use such majestic magic. She clarified that he was also at rock bottom, so he should know that. Ophelia let him know that he had guessed everything belatedly. Philip asked why she allowed such a person into the palace. The princess thought that she should go to the laboratory. Her Highness asked Isaac if he liked this laboratory. Ophelia decided that she was simply unsurpassed. She said that the materials he requested had already arrived and asked what he was looking for there. Isaac admitted that he was looking for her bodyguard, Philip. He said that Philip always comes to the lab and behaves inappropriately, so he was going to take appropriate measures if he saw him today. Ophelia asked, "What kind of events are we talking about?" She admitted that she embellished the fact that Philip is her bodyguard a bit, so it's not necessary. Isaac replied that although he annoyed him, he still commanded respect for acting in the interests of Her Highness. He added that it is not easy to win people's favor, but she succeeded. The princess turned to the priest and noted that he looked at this world so positively. She wondered if he looked like a high priest. The young man replied that this could not happen. He wondered why she was talking and acting like she didn't deserve someone's protection, although he admits that she may have ulterior motives. Isaac said that he could see how many people of goodwill acted for the good of the princess. Her Highness met Philip and asked if he had any business with Isaac. After all, she thought he would cling only to Kirsten all day. He answered that no. He began to make excuses, but said that he heard how she went to the laboratory by herself and decided to accompany her. Ophelia asked if there was any danger for her in the palace, and was he really so worried about her? She also reminded, does he remember about their contract? Philip replied that he remembered that he had to take her life and added that by that time she should still be safe. He also said that then Nigh, who is now under the protection of the princess, would also suffer. Philip admitted that it was the first time he had seen his younger brother so happy. He admits that the princess gives him what he could not give. The princess thought that he was worried about her because he was afraid of losing the life they had now. The young man said that, by the way, he had learned that it was Her Highness's order to put him in the same room as Nigh. Then it seemed to the princess that she saw the true essence of now. The young man planned something important. He kissed the princess's hand. The boy thanked Ophelia and said that it was important for him to say it in his true form. Her Highness said, rather surprised, that there was something wrong with his clothes. Now said that his clothes were getting small and he had to go and get ready. The princess confirmed that he was looking unkempt now. Her Highness thought that his love for his younger brother had not gone anywhere, so she decided that she did the right thing by putting them in a room together. She also thought that next time she should be told that she also had a motive, so she shouldn't be so grateful. Ophelia said goodnight. Shauna told the prince that he had become close to the princess lately. Yot replied that he followed her recommendations, because she herself said that until he became strong, he should be friends with the princess. The maid confirmed this and asked him not to forget that Ophelia is the enemy who killed Satara. The prince assured that he knew it. It is necessary to kill brutally and take revenge for it. But before his eyes appeared the beautiful face of the princess with the flowers that he had given. Ophelia asked if we were talking about a wedding. The maternal grandfather replied that, in his opinion, lately Her Highness had become interested in friendship with men. Therefore, he would like to find a suitable one. The girl was unpleasantly impressed and said that lately there have been many rumors around her. But does the Duke believe them? She assumed that the Duke himself might have been involved in this, because he had been absent from the palace for some time. Her Highness asked if he wanted her to marry. Grandfather asked if she was the one who provoked all this. Now the empire was torn in two. Some forces served Her Highness. According to him, there was also a faction in support of Utah. Duke Sarkart sternly said that if the prince had continued to be in captivity, such problems would not have arisen. He added that this illegitimate child could not be released. The princess said that his words amounted to treason, regardless of his status and position. The man shouted nervously and addressed the lady by her full name. He was one of the few people who were allowed to call her Ophelia. Sarkart advised her to increase her power through marriage and predicted that she would be the next empress. The duke was the only one who protected little Ophelia after the death of the empress. He asked, "Does the princess really want this fatherless man to take away the empire from her?" The man added that marriage is a good tool for maintaining power. Ophelia thought that it was not in her interests to have such a board. Nevertheless, she decided that she should use this chance. It was a battle between the factions of the princess and the prince that took place behind the scenes of the throne. The duke noted that the downside of the princess is that she looks like her mother, so she needs to find as many accomplices as possible. Her Highness did not understand why the duke began to behave so defiantly. He said he cared about her, but she still didn't understand his real motive. Suddenly, during the conversation, Her Highness found herself in handcuffs. She asked Duke Sarkart, "Didn't she give up and chained her to the table?" Ophelia began to scream, "Where are these men taking her?" Grandfather replied that she had to go to the inspection of the brides. The man clarified that they did it by force because she did not agree voluntarily. The princess shouted that she had been released and promised that she would not run away. The duke assured the princess not to worry because a healthy partner had been prepared for her to produce an heir. Ophelia thought that this old man had completely lost his shame, but she understood that he would never stop. Her Highness decided that whoever came there, she would resist. But at the same time, she was troubled by some bad premonition. She said aloud that it could be anyone but Lord Kirsten. Kirsten said that he was also looking forward to this precious meeting with Her Highness. The boys practiced with swords. Nigh complained, "How can you swipe them 100 times?" Ute made a remark so that he would stop complaining. The prince angrily added that if he did not like something, then let him return home. He asked Nigh if his parents even know that he is here. The boy noticed that the prince was rude to him every day. He answered that there are no parents, but only him and his brother, and he is often not at home. Ute asked if it was true. He decided that Nigh was too close to his brother and mentioned the princess. The prince remembered the picture when Her Highness gave the order to burn all of Sitara's belongings, clothes, portraits, jewels. Nigh suggested aloud that the prince had been very lucky in life and had probably been spoiled since birth. The boy asked if His Highness had many portraits of his mother. He said that in the alley where he lived, a man painted portraits without seeing people. Ute admitted that he also did not have a single portrait of his mother. Nigh asked, "Did they not stay in that tower?" The prince became nervous and assured that he was telling the truth. Nigh asked, "Is the tower an extension of the palace?" The boy added that he envied the prince's life. He assumed that he must have many memories with the princess. Ute asked Nigh if that man really draws portraits from memory. The boy asked the question in surprise. The prince nervously said that he had recently talked about the artist. Nigh replied that he now understood that it was about the man from the alley. Ute said they should go. Did Nigh clarify if he meant the artist? But he added that he has no money, and this service is expensive. The prince was upset. Is it so impossible? The young man suggested that they could steal jewels from the imperial palace. Ute asked again. Meanwhile, the chained princess screamed that she was sick of it. And this Lord Kirsten is here again. She asked, hadn't she warned him recently? She clarified that she would like to see his face less often. The Lord confirmed that he had heard this from her. He added that the Erhard family was probably unable to refuse Duke Sarkart's offer. Ophelia was once again mentally angry with Grandfather Sarkart. In fact, the offer to go on sightseeing first came to Asad's eldest son. Kirsten said that Asad got sick due to stress, so he had to go. Ophelia nodded in understanding, but thought that if Lord Asad was sick now, then... Lord Kirsten decided to apologize before they started talking. The princess exclaimed that he was reaching under the hem of her skirt, and that it was so rude. The young man said that even if he was a duke, who gave him the right to treat the princess like that? Ophelia noted that he has truly extraordinary abilities. The explosion of the chain didn't even harm her. The young man noted that now they can talk in a more comfortable environment. Her Highness thanked and apologized because she is not going to marry a lord. Kirsten replied that he wasn't counting on anything coming here, but he offered to drink at least a cup of tea. The girl said that he is very annoying. The girl replied that she needed to check something so he should drink the tea himself. The Lord noted that Her Highness was so cruel only in relation to him. He asked her permission to promise her one thing. Kirsten admitted that if there was a fight for the right to be the next emperor, the Erhard family would fully support her. The princess thought that it was all very silly because Ute is still a child, and he himself does not want to hold this post yet. Her Highness thought that it was completely wrong to impersonate a person chosen by the people. As a result of such actions, the chosen person could be executed, as he himself was in a past life. Kirsten repeated that he wanted to give everything to the princess. He wondered if it was love, so he dared to ask. At that moment, Ophelia saw Amy and Philip and called them. They answered the princess together. Her Highness asked, "What is Ute doing now?" Philip replied that now, as usual, there is a fencing lesson with Sir Assad, but the teacher fell ill, so the prince independently makes 100 swings with the sword. Ophelia remarked why there was no guard around the prince now and ordered to go and check on him. Lord tried to get back to his question. He added that he was used to always being on the back burner. The young man asked if everything was okay with the prince if she said to go and check on him. Ophelia explained that he could be kidnapped because despite the fact that he sat in the tower for a long time, he still remains a prince and without supervision can become easy prey, like a blue-blooded person. The princess began to think that the kidnapping could hardly happen on the palace grounds. But beyond its borders, there may be a desperate person who will take such a step and use the bait for the prince. And only then will the Ute fall into the hands of the customer, who will use it for his own purposes. Nigh decided that if he did so, he could leave the palace grounds without hindrance. Ute admitted that he had already gone to the festival once with the princess. The boy Nigh did steal the jewels from the imperial palace. He thought this would be enough to ensure that Brother Now would never have to work hard again. Ute asked the boy what had become of him and urged them to go to that artist as soon as possible. Ta Nai replied that he needed to ask the people about him. The prince was worried that he did not know where the artist was now. The next moment Nai found the man and began to show him something. He led him to the right place and introduced him to Prince Yuta. The boy showed the place he was talking about. The prince noticed complete unsanitary conditions all around and noted that even the tower was not so dirty. Nai admitted that the place felt like home, so it was easy to find. Ute wondered if Nai really lived in such a place. Another boy asked if things really looked that bad. He offered to come in first. His Highness stopped him and told him to wait. He noticed people watching him and he had a strange premonition. The guy warned Naya so that he does not go alone. It was completely dark outside the door, and Ute started calling out to his friend in a panic. Then the prince saw a bright light and had many questions. The strange creature that appeared before him addressed him as a dear guest and said that he had come to a special place. Ute thought, is this person really an artist? He said he had heard that this man could paint a portrait and asked if it was true. The artist asked the boy to close his eyes and imagine the person he misses. Ute wondered if it was safe. He tried to remember his mother, but he also had an image of Her Highness in his head. The strange being told him to concentrate more and remember his mother. She clarified that the crystal ball shows a completely different person. The prince once again tried to remember his mother, but there were only minor moments in his memory. Ute tried to remember his mother, but admitted that despite all his efforts, a smiling Ophelia appeared before his eyes. He well remembered that when the emperor fell ill, it was she who shut him up in that tower. Then he did not understand why he was constantly thinking about her. He forbade thinking about Her Highness, and remembered that he had to take revenge on her. Now he had to remember his mother's face. Ute began to remember how he had been told that Lady Sitara had committed suicide by drinking poison. But suddenly he saw a giant in a mask who shouted that it was necessary to catch that boy immediately. The giant held Naya by force. Ute shouted, sounding his friend. Nai cursed and shouted for the prince to run because these people want to catch him. His Highness was very surprised at such an application and questioned. The boy shouted that these people hid behind the tent and grabbed him, and they were very dangerous. The giant assured Nai that he would take care of him. Jut was very angry and determined to act. The man recognized the mask and turned to Yuta. He accused him that he would pay for stealing Naya from him. The prince remembered that this was the man who exploited Naya. More men appeared in the room, smiling ironically. They assured the prince that they would not harm him and he should just follow them. Ute wondered that there were about 4 enemies around, and would he be able to handle them by himself? He understood that no one would save him now. Ophelia's face was still in the magic ball. The strange creature laughed wickedly. One Yaga man declared that they had come to accompany the prince. But is this little brave going to attack them? But suddenly I felt a blow from behind. It was Isaac Bellavarian. Ute shouted in surprise. Is it really a priest? Isaac asked the man. Did he say that he had come to accompany the prince? But he was lying on the floor unconscious. The priest asked if he did the right thing by hitting him. Jut thanked him for coming and said that he did everything right. Isaac said that he was sitting at the top of a tree, but suddenly he saw 2 children going outside the palace. The priest said that he thought they had left without an escort, so he decided to follow them because he thought it was a bad idea to walk alone. The giant turned to Isaac, calling him a boy. He warned that they are in a different weight category, so he should not rush. Isaac deftly fought back, using magical power. Nigh also chased away enemies, and the prince calmed him down. The boy advised Mr. Yuta to choose the right moment and run away. The prince asked if he should run away himself. Isaac warned that even if they managed to escape, they would still be caught. The priest began to count and noted that it was 7, 8, about 10. Ute was surprised by the number 10 and said that he could only see 4 enemies. Isaac objected and said he had been misunderstood. Did he calculate how long it would take them? Meanwhile, Philip studied the tracks on the road. Ophelia asked him what happened to the prince and assumed that he had gone outside the castle. Her Highness asked the guard if he could follow. He replied that he was just waiting for an order. He assured the princess that he would definitely bring him back. Philip tried to tell Her Highness that it would be safer for her to stay. Ophelia said she would go in person and told Amy to get ready to go. The princess reasoned that Ute had disappeared with Nigh, and it didn't look like he was going to leave alone. She didn't want to think like that at all. But still the question arose. Didn't Yuta sell Nigh? After all, he needed money to live peacefully with his brother now. Kirsten asked Her Highness if she was worried about the prince. The princess replied that the prince of the empire had disappeared, so they should all be worried. Sir said he was worried about something else. He asked why such a precious person of the empire was dating a murderer. Ophelia understood that he meant now. Kirsten said that he wanted to ask Her Highness about this for a long time, but he knows that she changed his appearance with a magic wedding ring. Then why does she keep a murderer around her? He asked, is it possible that the reason is in that engagement ring? Philip shouted that they had arrived because the tracks led to this place. He began to call the prince Naya, but the princess warned him not to be in such a hurry. But the guard did not obey and continued to call the boys. He shouted for them not to worry because he had come to save them. Jut informed Philip that he was very late. His Highness specified that the priest had dealt with everything. Isaac explained that if you know the theory, you can easily understand everything. And he is a doctor, but he studied the human body. He added that people have weak points, it is enough to hit them. But the priest himself groaned because he was a little traumatized. The artist offered to heal him with magic. But Isaac refused. He explained that he endured it himself because at that time the prince was under the protection of the artist. The priest admitted that he was a good magician, but he himself suffered a little because those men were hiding in his tent. Philip asked if they were really hiding in a tent. Philip here as well. At this time, Philip continued to think, how could so many people hide in the tent inconspicuously that the magician did not even notice them? He concluded that they acted as a team. It seemed absurd to the prince. Jut noticed that it was getting dark again, like when he had just entered the tent, but he heard a sound similar to the ringing of a tambourine. The artist admitted that they accidentally acted together, but they had completely different goals. The artist girl informed the prince that she had finished the portrait of his mother. She added that now the prince must pay. Ophelia and Kirsten also got inside the tent. The princess remarked that she had seen Philip enter this very place, but now there was no one here. She asked, is there a secret exit? Kirsten thought about the magic barrier. Her Highness ordered the guards to check everything around. Was useless because no magician would be able to see this magical barrier. He thought that the princess could not know about the presence of this barrier. Kirsten informed Her Highness that it was a magical barrier and he had to speak. Ophelia admitted that she did not expect anything else from the best magician of the empire. She called Lord Kirsten a trustworthy person. He replied that it was because he would be the next master of the magic tower. Sir began to tell Her Highness about this phenomenon. The princess shouted that it was a magical barrier. Kirsten asked what she meant. Ophelia explained that they immediately followed Philip, but he disappeared. She thought that he simply did not have time to physically move to another space. Sir asked if the princess immediately guessed that it could be a magical barrier, Then why did she order to look for a secret passage? Her Highness assumed that only a true mage could give her an answer. She asked if it was really a magic barrier. Kirsten didn't understand how she could think of that. The Lord replied that Her Highness was right. He mentally noted how smart and talented she was. Ophelia said that in that case he had one thing to do. The artist girl admitted that she made a deal with the prince and has nothing to do with those bandits. She assured Ute that everything was fine with his companions and offered to plunge them into an eternal sleep with the help of magic. His Highness asked what she wanted from him. The artist again remembered the portrait of Sitara's mother. She offered to exchange it for a ring worn by his bodyguard. Ute wondered why she needed Philip's ring. He remembered asking him where the beautiful ring came from. The young man replied that the princess had given it to him. The prince told the artist that it was a gift from the princess, so he could not give it away at his discretion. The mage girl replied that she was rather surprised that the prince was acting in Her Highness's interest. She asked if she was his sworn enemy. She also smiled with satisfaction and noted that she had great pleasure looking at his memories through the crystal ball. She admitted that she wanted to open the prince's head. Ute trembled with terror. Ophelia came to the rescue in time. Kirsten said that at the request of Her Highness he loosened the barrier. Now she has to exert a little more force. The magical battle between the princess and the artist continued. The girl laughed. Ophelia asked what she was doing with the prince. The girl replied that she thought their relationship with the prince was about to deteriorate. She said that she had planted a small bomb in his head and corrected that it was a gift. The artist admitted that many people had already come, but she does not feel strong enough to face the Imperial soldiers and the future owner of the magic tower, so she simply retreats. Ophelia asked, did she really think that she would be let go so easily? The princess screamed and called Utah. The artist said that they would see each other again and called Her Highness a beautiful princess, but she clarified that it will happen in the near future. Ophelia carried her younger brother to the castle alone. Isaac admitted that he did not know that there were so many magicians in the castle, such as Lord Kirsten, but he admitted that he was glad because the prince was saved. The princess thanked Isaac for his participation. The young man was surprised by such a gift from the princess and replied that he was welcome. Jut begged Her Majesty's forgiveness for leaving the palace without permission. Ophelia replied that everything was fine and asked if he had become so close to a peer for the first time. It must have been a fun adventure, she supposed, since it was the first time he'd been tricked like that. Ute thought that she probably didn't know about his mother's portrait yet. He asked her not to punish Nigh too much. Ophelia wondered how she should do the right thing. She told the prince to go, because his teachers must have given him a lot of homework. The princess handed him the pendant and said that it must be his. The guy asked if she meant him. Her Highness said she found it in the artist's tent. She assumed it was a precious thing to him, so he should have it. Ute thanked his sister for not throwing him out and taking him with her. She replied that thanks are enough. He should go now. Kirsten asked if she was ashamed. Isaac added that then the prince would be even more happy. The princess got angry and asked what they had forgotten here together. Ophelia apologized and said that things are not as they think. Sir thought how cute she really is. She asked Lord Kirsten to tell her his observations about the prince. He agreed. He determined that Ute was full of different thoughts, but the flow of magical power within was normal. The priest added that the situation is the same with his holy power. Only minor flaws were discovered. Ophelia doubted because she remembered that the artist planted a bomb in his head. Kirsten decided that it was time for magical knowledge. The princess asked if it was about mental magic. The girl herself clarified that this is not similar to brainwashing, but simply hallucinations or visions that are temporary. Therefore, mental magic is weakened here. Kirsten screamed at Her Highness that he was the best mage here. He complained, why does she always decide everything herself, and when did she manage to figure this issue out? Ophelia replied that if she became the princess of the empire, then she should know all this. She decided she had to do a test and asked Isaac for more magic books. The priest refused and concluded that Her Highness needed rest. He determined that she had a slight fever. Kirsten silently observed their dialogue and actions. Isaac said she needed to drink tea from the priest to relieve her fatigue. The princess asked if it was the tea they drank in the temple, and refused. Kirsten intervened and said that symptoms such as simple fatigue could be relieved with his magic. The princess doubted that it could be dangerous. Lord admitted that he wanted to express his feelings for her in this way. Ophelia tensed and clenched her fists as if she were trying to strike. She wondered if it was magic. As a result, the girl remained upset because nothing magical happened. Both young men decided that magic did not work on the princess. Yut was studying in the kindergarten under the tree. Nigh asked him if he had received the portrait. The boy thanked the prince for covering him. Jut replied that he himself had contrived for them to leave the palace. He added that many things were reflected in the crystal ball that day. Nigh apologized to His Highness and admitted that it was he who touched his past, perhaps out of jealousy. The prince held his head and made strange noises. The young man asked him if something hurts. Yut said that after returning from the artist, he sometimes hears a voice in his head. It was as if someone was saying that Utah should be spared and her life taken. He wondered whose voice it was. Perhaps his mother's. His Highness did not understand why he was hearing such things. Nigh was not jokingly afraid of the prince's condition and asked if everything was okay with him. He suggested calling someone for help. Unexpectedly, a priest appeared in front of them and addressed His Highness. Nigh rejoiced at his appearance and said that he was just in time. He explained that the prince seemed to be in pain and that he was hearing voices. Isaac replied that everything will be fine if you believe the words of the princess. He remembered how Ophelia had qualified it as a vision or hallucination. The priest said it was a special tea from the temple, made for His Highness, that relieves fatigue. Yut wanted to refuse but was told to drink. Isaac said that the princess also refused if he didn't take care of the prince first. He couldn't believe that the princess cared about him. In my head, I could hear Sitara's mother begging Her Highness to at least take pity on Yuta. He decided that even without these voices in his head, he hated the princess enough. Nigh asked the prince why he was crying, but Yut wondered why Ophelia was doing everything to make him stop hating her. The princess was drinking tea and noticed that it was too hot. The artist wondered how he could dispel the magic so quickly and bring his feelings back to normal. She expected a longer effect. The princess wondered who was responsible for kidnapping the prince after all. It looked like Nigh wanted to sell him. Philip tried to prove that the thing was about his brother Nigh, and it was undeniable that he accidentally put the prince in danger. He asked for the lightest punishment for him, relying on the good nature of Her Highness. The princess was unhappy that this guy came to her again. Emma yelled at Philip, "How dare he come in here when Her Highness is changing her outfit?" The young man replied that they would rather kill him. Ophelia decided to play a joke on him. She asked if he was trying to save his blood after he committed such a terrible sin. Philip replied that he was still a child and agreed to take the blame and accept the punishment for him. The elder brother offered the princess to give everything he has so that she would feel sorry for Naya. Ophelia asked, "Is he really able to give everything he has?" She threw him a comb and ordered him to clean it. Philip asked if it was enough for him to clean this comb and promised that he would clean it until it was shiny. The princess shook her head. Then the young man said that he could sweep everything and clean her toilet with a comb. He assumed that he might still clean the garden when he saw the princess's reaction, but she shook her head again. Then Philip asked, "Is it necessary to wash the whole castle?" The princess laughed and said that he understood everything correctly. After some time, Ophelia noted that the matter with the artist was over. She was sitting with the boys on a picnic and she was very calm. After all, in addition to the spell that was put on Yuta, other strange things happened. At one point, the prince said he no longer had headaches or heard voices. Everything resolved itself. The princess was surprised that the artist wanted the ring so much that she gave it to Philip. Why did he need that ring, she wondered. Philip, as promised, cleaned the castle, even its tops. Nigh was worried, and told Her Highness that he could fall like that. Judd added that he did not know what Philip's fault was, but perhaps the princess would forgive him? Ophelia thought she would forgive him if she saw his willingness to clean properly. But she didn't understand what kind of mess he was making. Jut turned to the princess and told her that Philip was his dear friend, so he was worried about him, that he might get hurt. The princess saw only good in this, because the prince opened his soul to her better. She thought it was because she had given him the portrait of Sitara. Ophelia suggested that the boys go and ask him to come down together. They were very happy. The girl was happy that everything was going so well. She decided that if everything went on like this, she could die in peace. The priest came and addressed Her Highness. He asked her to visit his laboratory for a short time. He needs to check on the personal condition of the princess. Ophelia refused and said that she would be busy all this time. Now she has a business with Philip. Her Highness thought that she refused, not wanting to, but he only wanted to check her health. Isaac added that the problem of Her Highness being immune to magic could easily be solved. Ophelia asked him not to talk about it so as not to frighten the children. She added that there is nothing special about it. The priest agreed if Her Highness so desired and turned to leave. But the princess was somewhat worried about Isaac. She felt her debt to him because it was he who protected Nigh and the prince from that artist. Jut was unhappy with the appearance of the priest Isaac. Soon the princess asked what had happened when her brother began to fall to the ground. But soon they all ended up in the grass. Ophelia worried about her indecent appearance at this time. Judd apologized for losing his balance, and Nigh cried that he couldn't get up because he was tangled in the grass. The princess was very embarrassed when she saw Isaac looking directly at her. The priest explained that this happens when she avoids him. Ophelia asked what he meant. The young man replied that if she did not feel uncomfortable, he still remains a clergyman and should take care of Her Highness's health. Therefore he added that he would try again and again. He asked her not to avoid him. Isaac asked her again. Ophelia shouted that she wasn't trying to avoid him on purpose. It just happened that way. The prince was delighted that there are such people who can talk so calmly to the princess herself and not lose her head for it. He decided that he wanted to become a person like a priest. Jut was worried that Her Highness had caught a cold. He noted that her hand was quite hot. Meanwhile, in prison, sounds of blows and coughing could be heard. A voice in the darkness announced that he would tell everything he knew about the artist and begged for mercy. Kirsten ordered him to stop and asked if the goal was to get hold of the ring. The princess admired Isaac Beleverin, the first student of the high priest. She wondered if his eyelashes had always been so soft, his cheeks rosy, and his skin smelled so good. Isaac asked the princess what she was looking at. Ophelia was nervous because she couldn't take her eyes off him. She replied that she had come because the painkiller test report was a little late. She decided that she should stay away from him for a while and said that she would leave if she wasn't ready. The priest asked, "Is she really leaving?" He managed to say that if she needed a report, but then something happened. The princess thought, what kind of smoke is it that eats out the eyes? She asked Isaac if he was okay. He sharply covered the princess and began to explain. It was a noxious gas that evaporated with a mixture of medicines. The priest said that now it is necessary to spend a short time in this position. The princess was excited because she felt his pleasant aroma and a reliable hand on her. She decided that she needed to calm down urgently. She declared that she was already in full order, so she should go. Ophelia wanted to go to another place, where Isaac would not be, so that her heart would not beat so much. The priest thought, why has he been in such a strange state lately? He even sleeps badly, and still makes mistakes on the same place. He decided that he should go to the temple. He ordered himself to collect himself, and to be careful that the medicines did not mix with each other anymore. But something seems to have happened again in the laboratory. The high priest laughed and said, "That is hard to believe." He explained that two people who were difficult to see visited him at the same time. Isaac turned and started walking back. The old man grabbed him and asked where the boy was going to go, because this is where Her Highness is, and it would be a violation of the rules of etiquette. The princess intervened and told the high priest to let him go. She clarified that she came here to drink a cup of tea. Ophelia wished Isaac wasn't here at this time. The princess admitted that there was no one who could prepare the temple's special tea like the high priest. She confided that Isaac's tea was too hot. The priest said that she seemed calmer, and he was glad about that. He asked Ophelia how the fearless young man was doing, and whether he was causing trouble. The princess laughed and asked if it was about the priest Isaac. She replied that he helps them a lot. The girl thought that if it weren't for Isaac, Ute would have faced many problems. She also liked that he was constantly working on testing a painkiller for her. She thought to herself that it was a good thing that Isaac was with them. At the same time, the princess did not like the fact that her heart began to beat faster in the presence of the young priest. The high priest admitted that he was worried when he sent him to the palace because he is still very young. He was worried that Isaac might have put poison in the food or set something on fire. The princess thought that the tea was a little hot. Ophelia could not believe the priest's doubts about Isaac. She said that the high priest was exaggerating things too much. The man said that he himself would be happy to think so. The old man admitted that in the past Isaac was very gloomy and had an explosive temper, but now, thanks to the princess, he has become much calmer. He added that Her Highness should know about the young man's past. The girl thought that even in past lives she had not asked him anything, and he himself had not told anything like that. Ophelia heard a blow and asked what kind of commotion it was. The high priest wondered who dared to interrupt them when he was going to tell about Isaac's past. The count demanded that the high priest come to him. They begged him to stop because he is in the temple. This ignoramus turned out to be Count Ruel. The man shouted that he had made so many donations for the temple, and he was being treated so rudely now. The priest told Ophelia that Count Ruel had come again. He assured her that other priests would take care of him and offered to go to a quiet place. The princess heard the count shouting that if the high priest was not there, then Isaac should be called to him. He also shouted that he had done research and discovered that Isaac was a commoner. He asked, "How are they not ashamed?" Ophelia noted that all this is quite provocative for the priests and Isaac himself. The old man begged the young man not to appear in that place. The princess sighed with regret because she considered him the most polite person. Is it Isaac, Belivarian, who received God's mercy and love, always made such an aggressive facial expression? Count Ruel poked at him and shouted that this was the same low-grade Isaac. The crowd restrained the count and people shouted that it was impossible. Ruel shouted at the young priest that he could not hear the truth. Ophelia was worried that there could be big problems. She mentally thanked God that everything had passed without incident. Excited clerics came to the superior with a request that he arrest Count Ruel. The priest cursed that they were all scoundrels, disturbed him, and he had a guest. People cried that they couldn't do it anymore. At that time, the princess hid her identity. The monk complained that the count came every day and turned the temple upside down. He said that they had their own business, and they couldn't follow him all the time. Also, they cannot drive a great nobleman out of the gate. The princess thought that she could not even start a conversation in such a situation. Nevertheless, she dared to ask one man what problem the count had. He just sighed. But then the monk said that it was not such a big problem. He said that the members of the Ruel family got into trouble because of the change of seasons. Any priest can go to that place and pour out holy power. But Count Ruel leans forward and wishes to receive treatment only from a high priest. The monk clarified that the laws of the temple do not work like that. Ophelia thought that now she understood everything. She knew that the high priest only treated members of the royal family, but she didn't think that was enough of a reason to refuse. At the same time, Her Highness understood that if the high priest personally went for such treatment, he would be recorded in the Book of Conspirators, so it was necessary to avoid this. The monk admitted that now the count is making concessions and is satisfied even with Isaac, and once again asked the priest to do something. The old man said that Isaac was shameless, although he was not because he was called to the palace. The princess thought about the current state of the young priest. The high priest informed Her Highness that Isaac had a very, very dark past. Ophelia admitted that there was as much commotion in the temple as in the palace and said that she would leave. The priest asked if the princess was already leaving, because she had not yet listened to the story about Isaac's past. The girl replied that it was rude to talk about a person behind his back. The monk did not approve of such an attitude on her part to the high priest. But the others still admitted that this lady was surprisingly beautiful and sweet. They asked again, did she say something about the palace? They also noted the beautiful hair, delicate fragrance, and nobility that this young beauty will acquire from birth. Quite unexpectedly, it reached them that this girl is the princess of the empire. Count Ruel offered to open the carriage door for the princess. He admitted that he was honored to meet Her Highness and added that no one can hide the fact that she is a princess. The man bowed to the moving carriage. Ophelia noted in her mind that the great nobles were all such morons. She decided that Count Ruel was no better than Duke Sarkart. It was strange to her that in the place where they allegedly met by chance to say goodbye, he also gathered all the priests. She took this as pressure to get treatment from the high priest or his deputy Isaac. The princess ate cookies and reassured herself that sweets help relieve stress. She considered it enough to replace food. Suddenly, a young priest appeared and said that this was not enough. He recommended that she take care of her health and eat according to the recommendations of the daily norm. The princess mentally calculated the calorie content of Isaac's meal and decided that he had significantly exceeded the norm. The young man exclaimed that his soul felt lighter after he had eaten. He warned the princess to move away from the edge. The girl asked in response. Ophelia angrily asked him what he had decided to do. Isaac jumped up and yelled that when a person is eaten, they need to move. The princess called him a fool and said that he was going out of his mind. The girl shouted his name and screamed. They were both silent for a while. Isaac admitted that it was more dangerous than he thought. The princess called him a fool many times and ordered him not to do it again. The priest gleefully claimed that nevertheless his jump was cool, so cool that the princess even for a moment forgot about her experiences. Ophelia mentally asked him not to do this again for her at a time when he himself was not feeling well. She admitted to herself that the moment she sees Isaac, she is overcome with excitement. The girl explained this by the fact that she respects Isaac's desire to help others. The young man began to tell and said that his father was a doctor. He said that his father treated such nobles as Count Ruel, but over time, he was reported to the temple and executed. Isaac added that it was all true, because he had seen something bothering Her Highness after visiting the temple. He confessed that he felt much better after he opened up to the princess. Ophelia thought that only he has such a power of kindness, and only he knows how to love this world like that, and therefore he should not belong to the palace. She remembered that in all his past lives, he wanted to go as far as possible. The young priest asked if she would order him to treat Count Ruel. The princess asked, even if he didn't like it? He replied that treatment is treatment. The girl agreed and specified that he could forget about Count Ruel. Ophelia asked Isaac if he would like to heal more people in this world than he can imagine. She sincerely wished him that he would not lose that kindness in his heart. The guy asked what she meant when she heard the suggestion to try to treat more people. She showed where the old local area was. Ophelia said that after the fire there was a wasteland. She wants to build a big house there to treat the sick. Her Highness offered Isaac to lay a foundation there. He was very surprised that a large medical center could appear in the wasteland of the old district. Ophelia replied that she had promised to make doctors legal. She added that this system will need to be adjusted, namely, to train more competent doctors and make them available to common people. She also said that she will try to ensure that the treatment of diseases does not become exclusively the property of the nobility.